Okay, it says we're live. Sorry for the delay, everybody. I had a last minute phone call. Why is it? No, I don't want to do that. Not now. It just suddenly popped up. Do you want to install software on my other laptop? That's not good. Okay. Happy New Year, everybody. It's a bit late for that, I guess. By the way, everybody, let me know how the sound is. I was really struggling with getting the sound set up properly. So I hope it's loud enough. I've at least got my microphone nice and close. I'm actually thinking about getting a proper boom so that I can actually get it closer to where I am. I've also got a fan running in the background and some noise suppression going on, so I'm hoping that that doesn't cause a problem. It is hot here in Sydney. Actually, my camera's there. I shouldn't be looking at my microphone. It is hot. I am sweating. It's uncomfortable, but that's what you get for living in Australia. Um, we'll manage through it. So yeah, again, I hope that that the fan going in the background isn't going to be giving a problem tonight. Um, First stream of 2024. Not quite sure yet what we're going to do today. I was thinking about, and I actually didn't even open that. I was actually thinking about having a look at the docs that we have. Um, because there's a bunch of things that are a bit outdated or can be polished up a little bit, especially around some of the demos that we created and about the setup stuff. There is a setup script in here which does the bare minimum. While if we look at Godot demo projects, and in the Godot demo projects, there is a nice XR area now. You can see that there is a much bigger script here. So I'm thinking about adding adding a documentation page where we explain all the additions that we do here. Let's have a look at chats. Hello, everybody. Hello, Lemon Jumps. Hi, Shaisag. Hi, Nicholas. Hi, Xplats. Got XR tools running on Vive XR Elite Standalone. Woohoo! Exported the APK and moved it over, and everything worked. I'll try to post a link. That is really cool. Unfortunately, I don't have any HTC hardware here. So I know that some people have been playing around with the Focus. I know that from discussing with some engineers at HTC that they put some work into the XR Elite drivers. So as far as I knew, it should work, but it's nice to have some proof. So that is really good news. I'm glad that Godot and XR tools are running fine on an XR Elite. That's really nice to know. All right. So yeah, sorry. I will hopefully be able to keep up the fluids tonight because it's yeah, like I said, it's very hot here. So excuse me if I take regular sips of my drink. So yeah, tonight I am thinking about having a bit of a look at the demos that we have, at whether the docs are up to date, and it might actually be interesting to just talk through some of these things as we move some things over to the docs, and I might actually be able to answer some questions around this. If time allows, I want to make a start on another example project in the demo projects. And I did make a false start on this already, so we might toss that away and start again. I'm not sure yet. But I want to make, seeing that these are two upright, first person character body implementations, I want to make a version of a seated experience. So how to do a little race car game, and we'll have a look at how we go. And one of the things that is very important in the demo projects is that we're trying to keep the assets as simple as possible. We don't want really big assets in this project. We want to keep these like small footprints. So yeah. Rendering hooks. So yes, I'm not making any promises, but I am really hopeful that it will be merged in the very near future, and that it will be in 4.3. As far as I'm concerned, it's all done. We're testing currently whether all the changes to the renderer have upset things. There is a discussion about changing the way that MSSA Resolve works when because it's getting all very complex to manually put in all the moments that conversions need to happen. But I don't think that will hold back the PR being merged and accepted. So yeah, fingers crossed. It's looking good so far. The feedback on the PR is, there's a number of people working with it, and they're all sort of doing some really cool stuff with it. So yeah, I'm hoping that that a final okay comes on that really really soon. Webcam support. It's not something that I personally am very involved with anymore. We a long time ago in Godot 3, we did add in the camera server so that you could use the camera on your phone as background. And the problem that we ran into is, quite simply put, it's a mess. So on Android and iOS, we got it working very well. There's a couple of PRs out there with functionality that allows on Windows to use that, and you can get any camera source, including webcams, working that way. But we've never really merged anything because there's, especially on Windows, there seems to be competing implementations, each with pros and cons. And we just haven't gotten that to work in a stable way yet. If someone steps in who wants to complete that work, who has experience with that, that's of course very welcome. The same thing on Linux as well. On Linux, there's also a lot of unclarity about how that functionality can be completed. So I don't think that is something that I'm not aware of anybody who's working on that right now, but it is something that I hope that at some point someone with expertise will land the hand and get some things over the finish line there. But at this point in time, it's not something that I think anybody has on their priority list. All right. What else should we talk about before we actually get into writing some things? Plans for 2024. I'm not sure yet. But seeing that is the start of the year, no, maybe actually let's start with the reflection on 2023, because 2023 was a really, really strange year in many ways. Obviously, a lot of highs. I went to GDC last year for the first time in my life. That was definitely a highlight of 2023. I got to meet a lot of people that I've been working with for the last 7 years and only met for the first time at that event. Met Quan, the person. Actually, both Quan and Ariel were there. I met them both for the first time. Obviously, the original developers behind Godot. Amazingly friendly people. It's a really interesting experience meeting people in real life. And that is also always a thing that I find interesting in working online and working with people purely through chat systems and stuff like that. A lot is lost in that. It is such a big difference meeting someone in person. And that doesn't just go for Juan and Ariel. That goes for Remy, who I met for the first time, and Clay John and David Snowpack and so many others. Yeah, it solidified for me how much the group of people who are most involved in Godot are just really really nice people. So yeah, for me, GDC was a highlight. That was a really big experience. But the weird thing, of course, is it's been in a year where we have seen a lot of things slow down and a lot of things sort of being paused, and especially in the XR world, where through things happening in 2022, moving into 2023, there were a lot of people waiting for stuff. And then all of a sudden we had Apple announcing the Vision Pro, and that sort of brought things a bit up. And then the Quest 3 was released, which really brought things up. And at the end of the year, we had the announcement that we had Steam Link. And now recently in this week, and I know this is a bit of 2024, we've had the announcement of Unreal VR, the mod slash plugin that allows you to play a whole bunch of normal games in VR with mixed success, but still, it's technologically speaking, it's a very impressive thing. But it's also showing that VR is on an upwards trend again. There is renewed interest in the industry in VR. So after a year of things really being slow and a lot of things being in a holding pattern almost, it feels like we're starting 2024 on an upwards trajectory when it comes to the stuff that we're doing here. And I'm very excited by it because I'm hoping that that also means that Godot gets to grow, or Godot XR in this case, gets to grow along with the rest of the industry. So that's going to be really interesting. What else was in 2023 that's noteworthy? Obviously, Unity. Yeah. Something with very mixed feelings. Obviously, I don't want anybody to lose their livelihood, to see, their endeavors fail or, go into the wrong path because a tool that they are relying on makes weird jumps. So in that respect, I'm glad that they wound back a few things. I'm glad that Unity does seem to be making a number of choices that at least would suggest that they're focusing much more back on the core of their business. Of course, we did have the announcement last week about them firing 25% of their staff, which is worrisome. Although at the other side, if that's what they need to do to survive, then I guess that's what they need to do to survive. But I can imagine that a lot of people are very on edge with that. And I think Unity has a long way to go before they repair the trust that they spoiled. And that's on one side sad, and on the other side, it has brought a lot of people to Godot, which is really interesting. And of course, something that I find really interesting about the whole experience is that while there have been people coming from Unity going to check out Godot and sort of going like, this is nice, but it's not good enough, or it doesn't fulfill my wishes, which is fine and perfect. A few people who have been very critical. That's, to some extent also fine, as long as it doesn't become toxic. But then there are a whole group of people who checked out Godot and went like, this is actually really good. I did not know that Godot was as far as it is. And of course, the icing on the cake of that is some of the indie developers who have been very publicly showing what they're doing and what their process is in starting with Godot, whether it is building a new project from scratch and trying out Godot for the first time. The many videos. I was a Unity developer trying out Godot. There's been some really interesting ones there. And then obviously, another high of 2023 in my eyes is Road to Vostok, a beautifully looking game that I am very excited about. Also very excited about to play because I love that sort of game. And it's dispelling a lot of myths. It is showing that in the hands of an experienced developer, Godot is a really powerful engine. And while I've known that for a long time and I've been advocating for that for a long time, seeing that actually in action, I'm pretty happy about that. All right, let me catch on chat for a second. I see that there's a few chat messages that came in. Hey, Wutan Studios, how are you going? I think VR and AR is here to stay. I know more and more people buying MetaQuest, people who are not playing computer games at all. I'm going to come back to that in a second because I very much agree with you there. Still hoping someone will make a good VR. Oh, sorry. Hello, Mr. Carpenter. Someone make a good VR OS. Be interesting to see Apple's take on it. Yeah, you could say that the Vision OS is a separate OS, maybe, but it is in essence it's still iOS in a VR flavor. But it is interesting that we have that for sure. Um, Shai say hello, and yes, you are right. Apple is, um, uh, while they're usually the last ones to enter the fray, they tend to enter the fray with a really polished product, and then indeed they tend to have a an attitude of we're the ones who started it all. No, you didn't. You're piggybacking on the research and of other people. But then again, um, let's not underplay um, how interesting the Vision Pro is and how much work Apple put in there. And again, I'm going to come back to that in a second because it has a lot to do with what Wooten Studio said. Um, Lemon, I'm one of those people. I thought that Godot was like game making competitor, and then I saw people making FPS. The thing is, Lemon, and that I think is the crux here. Wind back the clock 7 years when I first got introduced in Godot, and you would be right. Godot was an engine that could do 2D and 3D and did a lot more than Game Maker. But at that time, when Godot 2 was out, the focus for a long time had been on 2D. And that was because Godot successfully was able to capture the 2D market because it had a really solid 2D offering. While on the 3D side, while good, it did not measure up to Unity or Unreal, with the result that it didn't get the type of traction. Um, and then obviously with Godot 3, the whole OpenGL renderer was rewritten, showing that Godot made a big leap forward in 3D. Not good enough for competing with Unity, but good enough for some really interesting 3D applications. And then, of course, with Godot 4, with the jump to Vulkan, there's been this massive jump in what Godot can do 3D wise. However, whatever reputation Godot built in those Godot 2 days and has been holding on, because ever since then Godot has been an incredibly strong offering in the 2D game industry. It still kept that reputation as, oh, here's this little toy engine made by these hobbyists that are doing it all for free. And I think a lot of people sort of read those blurbs or saw reviews that were already dated or that just repeated the same thing over and over again instead of actually really looking at where Godot was going. And it's kind of stuck with that reputation. And I think if Unity hadn't done what they did, in the later half of 2023, people would have probably continued believing that. And a game like Road to Vostok probably wouldn't be created in this time frame. Someone will eventually do something like that, but it would move much further because the people with the skills to make these sort of things would just happily have continued with Unity and not really checked out Godot because of the reputation that it had, deserved or not. So Unity doing what they did and causing a lot of people to suddenly go like, hey, hang on, I have to check out the alternatives. So I'm going to have a look at Unreal and find out, well, Unreal's really beautiful, but it's overkill for my project. Or, I'm mobile targeted and, that's even harder to be performant and, get to do what you want to do. Or check out any game maker and finding out that game maker isn't suitable for what they want to do, and then eventually, oh well, let's try Godot, and then actually having a good look at Godot is suddenly going like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting scenario. Anyway, to come back to Wutan's remark and in that also Carpenter's remark on Vision Pro. Skunkinator, good morning, good evening. It's hot here. That's how it's going. So, VR and AR are here to stay. Now, the interesting thing is that I've held an opinion for a while now, and I'm starting to change that opinion. Now, when we look at VR, I am convinced that it was here to stay a long time ago. I think the big problem that we've seen, especially at the mid to end 2022, when Facebook suddenly got in trouble and Microsoft suddenly stepped out of, stepped back their things around the Hololens and stuff like that, and now even has stepped out of VR altogether. Um, the problem that I see there is that there was a focus moving away from VR and moving away from gaming, trying to get into more the AR space and everything around that. And I think that that was at a time when we weren't ready. And the problem with that is that as these steps failed, especially when you look at, for instance, the Quest Pro, which I now have and think was incredibly underrated and underappreciated when it came out, because so many people were, for whatever reason, and well, the reason I think is the publicity and the media focus being so much on something that it couldn't deliver, that people say this is a failure. The failure wasn't the device, the failure was the focus. The fact that we were being sold a future that the Quest Pro isn't meeting, and that I don't think any device will meet for another 5 to 10 years. And I think that is a real problem, because the moment that that happened, it didn't just bring down the interest in AR, it brought down the interest in VR, because all of a sudden we were constantly talking about those two as the same thing. The whole MR idea, and Apple is also to some extent guilty of that. They're trying to sell it as one device that can do it all. The Quest was one device that did both VR and AR, and it was sold as a package. Well, in my eyes, VR and AR are two very different sides of the same coin. And when I look at VR, and when I look at especially the Quest 2, which was out, obviously, at that point in time, with the Quest 3 on the radar, when I look at what potential PC VR had, unfortunately, because Meta kind of cornered the market with a good device, PC VR fell back a bit. I still think that VR proved itself at that point in time. The technology is solid, is very popular. There's a lot of Quests that were sold. Um, the games were starting to get there. Game developers were starting to get a feeling of what works in VR and what doesn't, and building better and better VR experiences. Um, and fast forward to now, you can actually see that that is coming to fruition, where there are better and better examples of really, really cool, games that you can only play in VR. That there is no equal to desktop. So I think, in my eyes, VR is here to stay. It's only going to go up and up and up. I actually think it hasn't really gone down, except for PC VR. But I think it's been on a continuous upwards trajectory. But in the public's eye, it's had a dip. And the dip was caused because of the AR side of it failing. Now, when we look at AR, the problem here is that when you look at um, the future vision of AR and what AR means, nothing that has come out today has lived up to the expectations that are put. And that is simply because the technology isn't there yet, at least in my opinion. Um, However, what we have seen is that within certain niche markets, AR can be used very successfully. Now, in those niche markets, the problem is that within that market, that is very clear, but outside of that market isn't. So, simply put, like business applications in AR, using the HoloLens for something like warehouse stocking, where you walk around a warehouse, and AR is labeling everything and helping you manage that warehouse. Is an example that I'm aware of that has been successful, but you know it's niche. It's something that doesn't really sell the product, or not to the masses. And that is also the word. That's, I think, in part why the Quest Pro didn't make it, because it didn't appeal to the market that it was focused at, meaning the consumer market for the most part. Because for a person like me, or the people around me, or the normal people, what would you use it for? Are you going to put a Quest Pro in your head and walk into the supermarket so that it labels things or helps you find the because that's a cool idea, right? If it wasn't a big headset, but it was like normal glasses, then I would find that cool. I walk into the local supermarket and it directs me exactly to the product that I'm after, and I can see that sort of apps on a AR headset would actually convince people to buy an AR headset, but not if it is a Quest Pro, because you're not going to walk outside with that. And there's a big part of me, and that has been saying for all through last year, that I'm very worried that the Vision Pro will suffer from the same problem, that it's targeted at, well, in this case, not the normal crowd, but the more upper crowd, the CEOs, the managers, the people who have money burning in their pocket. But what are they going to do with the Vision Pro? They're not going to walk around with the Vision Pro. However, before I continue with that thought, I'm going to catch up with chat again. So hold that thought, because that was me up until the end of 2023, and I have changed my tune on this. I'm going to go back to that in a second. Wait till a headset is able to properly replace a monitor, then XR will be mainstream. Yep, that is one that I'm going to be mentioning in a minute. Hi, Globotus. Yeah, I hope that I am not boring you guys with my little talk. Hey, hello again, Expats. I thought you were already hanging around. The magic of number 8. I wonder what the magic of number 8 is, dude. What's the origin story of your handle? And thank you. All the best to you as well for 2024. Okay, so back to the Vision Pro, and where I am starting to change my mind on the fact that even though the whole MR thing has been a bit of a buzzword, I'm starting to realize that there is an in between, where VR, for me, VR, and when I look at the Quest with pass through, especially Quest 3, which I absolutely love, I see pass through as an add on, as hey, I've got my Quest 3 because I want to play games. The fact that it has pass-through allows me to easily pick up my controllers. It allows me to move around my house. It allows me to see the people around me. And then when I'm ready, turn off the pass-through, play my game. There's very few scenarios where I'm actually using the pass-through outside as a helper tool. There are some game ideas that interact with your room that I find very fun, that I think are really neat. But I think that the options with that are very limited. However, when I then look at the way that Apple is currently presenting the Vision Pro, one thing that I find very interesting, and you just look at the keynotes or whatever presentation that it was that Meta gave when they were releasing the Quest Pro, to the stuff that's coming out of Apple, you can see a really big difference in the Meta videos. You saw people playing tennis with each other. You saw people, it was almost sort of like painting the Ready Player One picture of, people will be doing lots of things in VR and lots of things in AR, and they will do it in a social environment, and they'll do it together. And especially on the AR side of there, we are far away from reaching that. And I think they missed the mark there. Vision Pro doesn't really do that. Vision Pro, you can see that they have given much more thought about, okay, what am I going to do with a device like this when I am in the, sitting at home in my house? I'm going to watch TV on a big screen, which already exists, not invented by Apple, but that's the sort of thing that they're showing, which I think is not enough to sell a headset. They show, like Carpenter mentioned a minute ago, they're showing you know, you have suddenly hooking up your MacBook Pro to your Vision Pro, and suddenly your MacBook Pro screen is super large, and you might even have extra screens open. And I think eventually, and that's of course something that in iOS has always been the case, that you actually don't see it as a screen, but the windows that you have open will just be around you, and basically your whole room is your screen. You don't have the concept of a screen anymore. Any application that's running on my Mac Pro, I can put anywhere in my field of view and resize to any size that I want, and I can work with that. That's a reason to buy a Vision Pro. I'm not rich enough for it, but and I'm worried that because it's still a very bulky device, that wearing it for a whole day, working in air, is not good enough yet to convince me that I will be doing that long term. But I can see myself doing that. I can see myself working that. And I know it's already possible, right? Apple didn't invent this. I can install virtual desktop on my PC, and I can use my index in the same way, but the index doesn't have the resolution to make it comfortable. The Quest 3 comes close. I think even with the Vision Pro, well, while better, still is in the comes very, very close category, but it's not there yet. But I think it is good enough. And when I then have the choice between buying like a $2,000 huge monitor, which I would never spend on the monitor to begin with, you know, my monitor is $300, and that's the max that I'm willing to spend on a bloody monitor. But for, you know, your yuppie Apple user who has money burning in his pocket, yeah, you know, if you buy a $4,000 completely strung out Mac, you buy that $2,000, you know, Thunderbolt monitor with it. Or you buy that $3,500 Vision Pro, and you suddenly your whole room is your monitor. I can see that that is justifiable for some people, especially if the experience is as good as people let on. And it's that sort of thing. You know, there's a lot of things that they are showing in their publicity where I'm still sort of going like, you know, why would I want to FaceTime in a Vision Pro when I can FaceTime with an iPhone? No, because with an iPhone, at least I can see my actual face instead of a virtual face. So while I can see that it's cool that if I'm using the Vision Pro anyway and I'm getting a call, that I can take the call inside of the Vision Pro, I don't really see that as a selling point, or not as a major selling point. I see that as a nice bonus. And that's the thing that still I struggle with, is that I now see three levels. VR for me is, you know, immersive gaming. AR is hopefully at some point, you know, wearable glasses that opens up a whole bunch of doors that we haven't even thought of. And there's something in the middle where you are using a device like a Vision Pro, where the pass through is still kind of secondary. Now let's face it, if I'm watching a movie, the pass through part of it is not really interesting. If I am, you know, having it as a virtual screen, the pass through part of it is not really part of that experience. It's handy because it allows me to see my surroundings. It allows me to interact with my colleagues. It allows me to interact with other people around me. While in VR, I'm completely closed off. But the way that I'm using the headset is still a VR way of using it. I'm concentrating on opaque content, on screens, on things. I just have all this space around me. So I kind of am seeing that as a middle ground, as something new. However, there are still not enough use cases that I'm aware of that makes me think, yeah, I personally would spend $3,500 on a device like that because it adds so much to my life that I can't live without, that I need a device like that. You know, so far, you know, the big screens, the virtual screens, is the only thing that makes me wonder. But I would probably at some point hope that there will be a PC VR headset that has similar resolutions, but you know, I still haven't gotten to try a big screen beyond that could potentially come close. You know, using that with virtual desktop on a PC would already give me what I want, and it would give it on the operating system that I actually use from day to day. So I'm still sort of juggling. Is that really the use case that sells the Vision Pro, or is that the use case that um, that allows us to have some sort of middle ground for now? I'm not sure. I don't know. Time will tell. Um, and again, the other thing, of course, it is that with a device like that out there and actually people buying it, people are going to start experimenting with it, and we will hopefully at some point see that use case, that really selling use case, come up. The Quest 2 did the biggest service to VR for being cheap. Yeah, Shazak, absolutely. The Quest 2 was the game breaker. The Quest 1 was good, but not good enough. It was good in the sense that it put mobile gaming to the attention to everybody. It was meta proving the previously thought impossible. But it wasn't good enough to move people off of building PC VR games. They just did Quest as an extra. And I think the Quest 2 flipped that around. All of a sudden, you had a device that ticked all the boxes, that was good enough for the experiences that were being made at that point in time. And the downside of that is the thing that I wish didn't happen, but which ended up happening, is that it pulled everything out of the PC VR market into the Meta Quest market, which is, of course, brilliant for Meta because that meant that their device was only going to be more successful. But I still believe that, the way that I see it, PC VR is still the gateway drug to VR for a lot of developers. Your run of, especially indie developers who don't have a massive team and a massive budget to optimize their games to the nth degree, which on a Quest 2 is really necessary. PCVR offers the ability for that caliber of developer with, no budget or a low budget, with just one or two or three people building a game, to build a good PC VR game. The problem with PC VR is there's no market. If I build a really good PC VR game, that market now has disappeared because the only people who are focusing on PC VR are the real VR enthusiasts who are more than willing to splash, $1,000 on a big screen beyond, or $1,500 on an index, or whatever. And again, at the end of 2023, we saw a change. We haven't seen the end result of that change yet, but the fact that we now have stuff like Steam Link, and that we have now things like Unreal VR, the Unreal VR mod, is something that makes me hopeful that will pull a lot of people back to PC VR. The other thing, which unfortunately is joined to the hip in a way, is PlayStation VR. Because right now we have everybody building VR games for the Quest. If I am focused on just selling to Quest because that's what I'm doing, because that's where the market is, then I'm building a game where I'm already in my head thinking I need to constrain this game to the abilities of the Quest. So I'm going to keep my graphics easy and low. I'm going to not make a very big game because it's a mobile device that I'm loading on. I can't make a 60 gigabyte game, or nowadays a good game is almost over 100 gigs. Nobody's gonna play those. So now I've created that game and I'm selling well on the Quest. And now Sony comes around and says, that's a really cool game. We want that on the PlayStation VR. Well, unless we completely redesign that game to update it for the capabilities of the PlayStation VR, why would someone buy a game that was already available on the Quest on the PlayStation VR? What you want on the PlayStation VR are the big games, the beats. That's right. The Boneworks, and Half-Life Alyx, and Budget Cuts, and all that sort of games, right? The bigger PC VR titles, those are the ones that you want to play on PlayStation VR or port to PlayStation VR, because all of a sudden you have a market there to sell. Only everybody's exited the PC VR market, which means that for Sony, they suddenly have this really cool device that is capable of delivering amazing experiences like Horizon, Call of the Mountain, and Gran Turismo. There's people who bought the PlayStation VR 2 purely so they can play Gran Turismo in VR instead of on screen. Resident Evil is a good example, and there's a bunch of other really cool games on PlayStation, but there's no product there. If I want to make a game, I'm still going to choose making a VR game. I'm still going to choose the Quest over the PlayStation VR because the Quest, that's where the market is, and that's where the tools are. While for PlayStation, it's a big mystery what PlayStation means. It's all behind NDAs and it's all Sony secret until you're actually until you've proven yourself a capable developer that you can work with Sony and get access to that. What we really need is a resurgence of PC VR. People who build PC VR games know that they have a market to sell to, and that market now exists through Steam Link and stuff like that. And then suddenly you have titles that are worth porting to something like the PlayStation. And I've said this many times, and I'll say it many times again. The ideal there is, and the thing that I think would have completely put PC VR on the market is if Microsoft had decided to go and support VR on the Xbox, because even there it is even more clear that if I create a PC VR game, then I would be able to find a market on Xbox. So as an indie, I would focus on PC VR. That is where the tools are free. That's the easiest entry. That's my gateway drug. Now I've got a game on PC VR. Hey, I know that I have the ability to now distribute that on Xbox and do Xbox VR. Because I don't have that knowledge with Sony. I need to take a gamble whether it will turn out that porting my PC VR game to PlayStation VR turns out to be possible. And I need to take the gamble that if I don't have the know-how, that Sony likes my game enough that they might offer me help. That's really, in my eyes, what it boils down to, the ingredient that is missing right now to really make VR go mainstream. That said, this little guy here, Quest 3, is the first time that I'm sort of going, well, first of all, I can now play my PC VR games really comfortably on this. I know that it's been possible with the Quest 2. I know that AirLink and, the normal USB link, you can see that my cable is actually in there, already made it possible, but the experience is now so much better and so much more seamless with something like Steam Link that I'm going there. But also, I feel much more comfortable that you no longer need to have a larger, more experienced team in order to build a VR game that runs well on a Quest 3. The Quest 3 is so much more powerful than the Quest 2 that bar is lower. And for anybody who now today would start building a serious Quest 3 game, would actually do that in the knowledge that by the time that they're done, because it takes a year or two, if not 3, to make your game, the Quest 4 will be out, and that will be even more powerful. There's even going to be much more reason to believe that your game will actually run on that, and suddenly, the devices are much more accessible to developer teams that are smaller and have less experience in how to get the most out of such constrained hardware. Quest 2 to 3 hand tracking is completely possible in Godot and has been for a while now. The only thing that was, well, actually, there were two problems. One was that the way OpenXR has defined the skeleton data or the hand tracking data caused a lot of problems with people who, modeled the hand in Blender and then, added an armature, exported that, and then got something that didn't work. And we did actually, Malcolm did a lot of work in the last 2-3 weeks after a couple of people joined the XR Discord. I forgot the name of the guy who actually gave the final clue, so I apologize. I would love to credit you here. But there's so many people new that I don't remember everybody's name anymore. But we found out why. And Malcolm did a whole bunch of work over the last couple of days. So in 4.3, a small change in the OpenXR hand node was merged, where that node now has a couple of new features. One is that there's a option to switch between the OpenXR skeleton layout, which will work if you set up your hand properly with that skeleton, and that takes some real modeling foo. Although I've heard that if you work with Maya and you do it on Maya, that's actually the base of that skeleton model. So that might work better. Or you can go to what we've called the humanoid model. Godot actually has a built-in retarget for a full avatar. If you have a hand modeled in Blender and you put it on that mode, and as long as your bone names are all correct, and as long as you've weighted it correctly, it will work properly. And the second part of it is that we now have a mode where you can disjoint part of the tracking so that you can actually animate the individual fingers of a full body avatar. So you can link part of it on the left hand, part of it on the right hand, and then you can use IK to move the arms and make sure that the IK move towards where your hands actually are. So as long as you're within the IK range, your hands will be on the correct place. But if your hands somehow, because you're using controllers or whatever, you put one down on the table, all of a sudden it's outside of that range, and obviously the IK will restrict that. So there's a whole bunch of work going on. So while you can use this functionality within limits of 4.2, but that is the first piece of the puzzle that was now merged in 4.3. So once 4.3 is officially released, absolutely everything is there. The other ingredient is that Meta had one thing where they were different from well, mainly Valve, because the other platforms don't do both hand tracking and controller tracking. With Valve, if you switch between controllers, or you pick up your, where's my controller? Here. So you pick up your controller, then now you're doing controller tracking, and in Valve, it would still do the hand tracking part of it. It would just infer the bones of your hand. And then when you drop your controller and now you switch over to optical hand tracking, it would still do it. So you just use the system and your hand is correctly positioned regardless of whether you're holding a controller or not. Meta did it the other way around, because Meta started with just controllers only, and later on, or actually when they still had controllers, used their avatar system to model the hand around the controller and let you interact with the controller and animate that all. When they then introduced optical hand tracking, they made it as a separate system. That meant that hand tracking would only work if you weren't using controllers. The moment that you pick up your controller, no more hand. That's changed now. There's a new extension in OpenXR called the hand tracking source. That too was, I believe, merged this week, or support for that. We auto enable it because we want parity between Valve and Meta. That just makes the most sense. And that means that regardless of whether you're holding a controller or not, the hand tracking logic in OpenXR works, and you just put a hand in your project. As long as it's properly has a proper skeleton, it'll work. Pretty cool. And if you go onto our Discord, the official Godot Discord, you can find it. Why not? Quickly go here. So I'm not talking about my personal Discord. I am talking about the Discord that you find on the GodotEngine.org website. There's an XR channel there. Both me and Malcolm hang out there all the time. And you'll find a whole bunch of information about the hand tracking and the work that Malcolm has been doing and how you set up the avatars. There's a bunch of demos. It's really impressive. I'm very happy about that. Alrighty, where are we now? Love to have that, and in fact, you can do that with the quest. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to in that one, Lemon. So I'm assuming that you're referring to one of the earlier comments. Mr. Carpenter, pass-through for objects like mice and keyboard would be very useful. Yes, absolutely, and is actually a requirement if you want to use virtual windows. It's actually the one place that if you're in a pure VR device like an Index, yeah, you can use virtual desktop, but if you can't see your keyboard and you can't see your mouse, well, I've learned blind typing, but I still like to see my keyboard in my peripheral vision so that I know that my hands are in the right place. And sometimes you forget where some of the special characters are. You do want to be able to look at those. And that works really, really well with one of these guys. It's something that I'm actually quite impressed with. How how close the resolution of the Quest is to it's not completely there yet. Small letters are still hard to read, but you can see the keyboard and enough of the keyboard that you can comfortably use the keyboard in pass-through mode, and then have a virtual screen up in your environment. I haven't actually used my Quest in that way. I haven't actually got virtual desktop. It's actually on my list that I want to try it one of these days. And who knows, I might find it good enough that I might actually decide to start using it a bit more. But I'm not sure yet if the resolution of the Quest is high enough. And again, even the Vision Pro, while higher resolution, I don't know if it is high enough to replace a proper, high def screen. But this year we should get a fully featured VR Souls-like, so I'm hoping people will like it. Oh, you're working on a Souls-like game for VR. That is really cool. Yeah, definitely interested in playing that. Desmond, alles goed, jongen. Yes, agreed on that. Screens all around in AR will definitely happen soon. Yeah, I think the missing ingredient, and I have already hinted on it in what we're discussing here, is that we're still seeing the screens. From all the the PR on the Vision Pro, it's like, hey, I've got my MacBook, and now I've taken my MacBook screen and I put my MacBook screen here. No, don't do a screen. Do the windows. I'm going to put this window here, and I can make that window as big or small or large, wide or whatever that I want to do. I want to be able to put my windows wherever so that the whole world around me is a screen. I shouldn't be confined to a box. Yeah, the windows for my 2D applications are still boxes, but I should have all the freedom to make things as large as possible. And there's a lot of situations. I was talking to Quan the other day about this. You look at something like visual shaders. You don't have a window with your visual shader graph. Have your visual shader graph. Here's a node, here's a node, here's a node, here's a node. My wires run through it. Got some nodes over there, so my wires large. I have all this space to create my visual, my node graph, and whether that is, nodes for a visual shader, or equivalent if you would be using Blender in in an AR/VR/MR, whatever you want to call it, environment. Same thing, you would want to have your node graphs free in that way. Imagine doing Houdini in that way. I've got my Houdini node graph just floating around, and as I'm moving things around on my desk, I see my Houdini model change. Oh, I'm gonna redo that or change. Boom, my little building that I'm modeling, procedural modeling changes right in front of me. That would be an amazing tool to make, actually. Hey, Simon. I can help you test Index Quest 2 or 3, currently an MU 7-year cycle with my early access VR game, predating Moss. Ha! Cool. Quite simply put, that's the beauty of FOSS. Everybody is welcome to join in. Everybody is welcome to test things out. Again, this is the best place to be. Join the official Godot Engine Discord. Find us in the XR channel, and you'll see plenty of people working on plenty of things, and plenty of people asking people to try out what they're building. Me and Malcolm are constantly asking, like, hey, we built this. Now we added this feature to Godot, or we've added this feature to XR Tools. Please test it. Give us feedback. The more people testing, the better. Mero, nice to hear about the progress in 4.3. Are you excited about whatever Valve is cooking up with Deckard? Yes, sort of. Valve, hurry up. Bloody hell. We've been waiting for so long. Yeah, of course. You know, I'm a big fan of the Index. It remains my primary VR device. I do have to say that I am fully aware of the negatives of the Index. I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I'm able to have my lighthouses in my room here, that I have quite a bit of space to move around, that I can permanently have my Index set up in this way. Of course, that is a negative for a lot of people who don't have that room, who need to take down their setup every time they're finished. For people like that, a Quest is way better. Obviously, also the Index is showing its age. Spec-wise, it doesn't come close anymore. I've also started playing Elite Dangerous together with my son. I know that's an older game, but I still love that sort of game. We both play it in VR. He's on the Quest, I'm on the Index, and that is also where you then, again, older device. After a 2-hour session, your face is cooking, and especially in the heat that we currently have in Sydney. So yeah, whatever Valve comes up next, I am very excited. If not only that, I believe as much as I'm a fan of Quest, and as much as I know that people have their reasons to hate on Facebook and hate on Meta, and there is some truth in some of that. I'm a big fan of Meta Reality Labs. I'm a big fan of what those guys are doing. I'm a big supporter of those guys. But I believe that for the health of VR, Meta needs competitors. And I don't mean a competitor as an Apple, because as nice as I think that I think Apple is going to go into a different direction. While Apple is undoubtedly going to be a device also used for gaming, that's unavoidable. That's not where their focus will be. Um, they're going to take another priority or another thing that they are going to evolve their headsets into. And I don't think that's wrong. I'm actually saddened by our industry thinking that we should all have the same sort of devices. And if Apple goes this way, everybody should be following Apple. No, I actually think that there are different use cases for VR and AR where you can have a healthy ecosystem with one vendor focusing on this niche use case and another vendor following on this. And if Meta, and I would applaud Meta for it, would really focus on being the best gaming headset in the world and stick with VR, instead of trying to compete with Apple on Apple's playing field, I'm hoping that that's what they're doing. And if they don't, I hope that there's another competitor who will take their place. Right now, we don't have that other competitor. So the fact that Meta has a virtual monopoly on the VR gaming side isn't good for the VR industry. So yeah, I'm really hoping that Valve is indeed working on a competitor to Meta. I'm really hoping to see a headset that is really focused on a strong PC VR presence, even if it's a standalone, because that's a big rumor, of course. Is Deckard going to be a standalone headset, or is it going to be another PC VR headset? I'm really hoping that there will be more affordable PC VR headsets. So I think that the PC VR market, as I've already said earlier tonight, I think a strong PC VR market is what the VR industry needs as that point to get more developers into VR. Without a strong PC VR market, it's harder to enter VR. So whether that means that Deckard is going to be a standalone system, hopefully it's not going to run Android. Hopefully they're doing something with their Steam OS, and it's running, like comparable to Steam Deck, and you can make VR games specifically for the limitations of that hardware, perfect. But if the hardware or if the headset can then also be used as a PC VR headset, best of both worlds. Now, if they somehow pull out a miracle and make a standalone headset that is so powerful that it can just run PC VR games, I would be very surprised. But if they can pull that off, then they have a winner in my eyes. That's obviously the dream. And it's interesting, when you see what they've accomplished with the Steam Deck, and it might not be able to run PC VR games built, to run on a 4090 or 4080 NVIDIA card. But then again, you look at Half-Life Alyx. That runs on a 1080 card. That runs on 5-year-old GPUs. They have something of equal power standalone, and it can run Half-Life Alyx, which Steam Deck would suggest would be possible. Oh yeah, I'm excited, but until they show what they have, it is a big guess. Camera, yeah, and Immerse can do multi-screen, but I'm talking about not having a screen at all, just having game windows be able to be anywhere and not restricted within a virtual screen. So you're not saying like, hey, I've got my MacBook here and I've got virtual screen A here and B here, and I've got my my Xcode running on this one, and I've got my browser open on that one. No, I want to be able to put a browser screen here and my Xcode window over there, and I want to put my whatever other application over here, and I might want to have one running behind here. I want the windows to be replicated, and the windows to be streamed to Vision Pro individually. Don't know if that is possible bandwidth wise. And obviously, it's easier to just stream to screens instead of all the individual windows. But that's what I'm hoping that we get to at some point. Well, Simon, obviously, I'm really hoping that Valve goes there and will release a headset soon. But let's not forget that I'm hoping for that because I'm hoping for affordable PC VR hardware to get more people back into PC VR development. But if you got the money, put a couple of lighthouses up and buy yourself a big screen beyond, and pretty amazing PC VR experience. So there are plenty of options there. But yeah, I am a little worried, especially with Microsoft exiting the whole thing and sort of giving up on WMR. Yeah, I wish that didn't happen. I want more headset manufacturers to produce PC VR headsets, not less. And I want the upper range to be there. I want the big screen beyonds to be successful, as well as the budget headsets that create some volume in the market. Yeah, Meta, again, I can't say enough how big of a fan and supporter I am of Meta Reality Labs, what used to be Oculus. And in many ways, I actually support and agree with many decisions that they've made, because that is what is required to create a consumer grade product, because that is the thing that we have learned since the 1980s when Atari sort of went, is a curated environment like all the console manufacturers have maintained is a big reason why the gaming industry is as big as it is. But at the same time, it's incredibly stifling for innovation. It's incredibly stifling for for a market growing when there is only one such product, and there's only one one winner. We have to have more options, and we have to have an open option as well, which again I believe is PCVR. Oh, just a small wireless PC only. Yeah, yeah. Well, the big problem. Oh, sorry. The big problem with a PC based headset is the GPU. You look at your standard NVIDIA or AMD PC card, you look at how much heat those things produce. You look at the big fans. Either you create something that drains your battery in 5 minutes, or you create something that just cooks your head. Um, and even when you look at laptops and the sort of GPUs and laptops, they still create way too much heat. And again, that is why Meta went down the road of using mobile GPUs, which are all optimized um, to be as efficient as possible. Um, but as a result, also much more limited. And that is, I guess, where I find what Apple has done really interesting, because they have been busy so long to create such amazing chips for the iPhone, and having them also obviously for iPad, which is already more akin to laptop usage, or even my MacBook Air that runs on the same sort of chipsets. Um, yeah, they're in an interesting position there. So it's going to be interesting to see what Valve comes up with, or any other headset vendor that is not going through the, oh, I'm also going to do a Qualcomm XR2 Android based device, because we've got plenty of those now. Which I find really interesting, because yeah, we have the Quest, but we also have the HTC Elite. We have Samsung now saying that they're going to come out with something. Qualcomm themselves, with their Qualcomm Spaces, are flagging that more headsets are going to come that run on their set of hardware. Um, we need a other ecosystem besides that. But yeah, I can still have killer apps, but lots of indies are invisible in famous markets. Well, Simon, the interesting thing that I find in VR and that I find hopeful, again, like I said, the problem that we have is that, especially on constrained hardware like a Quest, you need developers who have a lot of experience in knowing how to make a performant game. While many indies are people who are still relatively early in their game development career, um, and who are more, who are generally successful because they come up with really unique, good ideas, and then with tools like Godot or Unity are able to realize those ideas. And on the VR side, doing that is a bit of a hassle. However, the flip side of that argument is that while VR is growing, it is still a market size that if a AAA studio has a choice and says, we can pour $50 million in the next um, big PlayStation 5 hit, or we can put $50 million into creating a AAA game for the Quest, then this PC PlayStation game is going to sell 10 times as many units, if not a higher factor, than Quest. So we're going to make much more money on this one than on this one. So a lot of AAA studios aren't getting into the VR market because they don't have the same return on investment as if they keep focusing on what they've always done, is building console games. While smaller studios and indie studios have the potential to, you know, maybe make less visually appealing games, but they have a bigger market because it's not saturated with big titles. Because that's what's happening right now, right? Is there's very few AAA studios that are building big VR games, and the few times that they do, Horizon Call of the Mountain is a good example. It is a lost leader game where Sony and Gorilla come together. Well, they're the same company in a way. And say, or Sony says to Gorilla, we need a platform selling game for our new PlayStation VR2. You guys go and build something based on your IP, or however that has gone. I don't know how that went behind the scenes. Um, but I don't think anybody ever expected Call of the Mountain to make money. Um, they were it's a publicity game. It's a game to show off the capabilities of the PlayStation VR 2 to get other people on board. Well, first of all, to sell the bloody thing, of course. And don't get me wrong, I love Call of the Mountain. I unfortunately don't have a PlayStation VR 2, but I was able to play it. Amazing game. Can't say pleasant. I'm also, I'm also a big Guerrilla fanboy. So love everything that they've done so far. Even visited their studios a couple of years ago, which was really really cool. Having the opportunity to do that. So yeah, it is really interesting that in my eyes, VR right now and still for the next couple of years will really be the territory of smaller studios um, and indies and even when you look at the more established VR studios, they started as indie studios. I still actually think that that is where the market opportunities are, and I think that for an indie, it's actually a really interesting choice because for an indie, you have the choice of um, let's make a PC VR game or let's make an iPhone game, and it is much harder to find an audience because you're one out of millions of other games. While if you make a VR game right now, you're still within a relatively small community of game developers. And it is much more likely that if you make a good game, that your game is actually going to be noticed. So for indies, the situation is a complete reverse as for big studios. Um, the big problem for indies is the bar at which you need to be in order to make a successful VR game because it is so hard to optimize for VR. But I actually think that VR right now is a really good market to be in, especially because if you make your VR games, if you're going through that process, and your first game might not be super big or might not be, looking like a AAA game, but you're going to learn what it takes to make a VR game. And then by the time that you have made a couple of small games this way, and you're finally ready to make that big game, the hardware will have caught up and the VR market will have caught up. And that's what you're seeing with, some of the early developers in VR, um, who really have a lot of chance. As long as the VR market keeps growing, their studios will keep growing. Hey, Money Trip, can we make a game like First Encounters of Quest 3? I'm not familiar with First Encounters, I have to be honest. Let's go have a look. First Encounters VR. Am I allowed to do this in stream? Oh, that one. Yeah, that's the one that I heard about.
It's okay, Today I'm jumping into my first ever
Not yet.
augmented.
I'm not going to play more than that because I'm not sure if I'm going to get a copyright strike from that one. That's going to be interesting. So, the thing that you need to make a game like that is to be able to do your scene scanning. So, that is functionality that's all exposed by Meta through the Scene API, and we're working on that. We're working on supporting that. We actually had a big discussion during the XR meeting yesterday, about that, and sort of discussing what we think is the approach that we want to take in to expose that information. So give it 2 or 3 more months for that to sort of work out and solidify, and we'll have that capability in Godot as well to bring your room information into Godot so that you can interact with the environment and do that sort of stuff. I see the use of eye tracking and hand tracking, maybe with gloves, as the primary user control in VR is a necessary step. Controllers are to a gamer base. Think of it like a touch screen to a phone. Yeah, that is a whole different talk. Interesting one that we had a big discussion on Twitter about that one a couple of days ago. I'm actually of a very different opinion. I believe that hand tracking and controller tracking will find their use cases. Quite simply put, the thing that hand tracking misses and will never have is tactility. You cannot feel things with your hands. There is, there is nothing with that. While with a controller, you have haptic feedback. We're gonna start seeing controllers. Sony's already experimenting with that, where you have force feedback on the controls. There are apps that absolutely don't need that, where hand tracking will be perfect. And what I really like about hand tracking, which I believe that people who are making games for controllers should still be doing, hand tracking makes you think about, how do I interact in my game or in my app? You cannot have a menu floating there with a pointer. I know that we have that, when you do the little pinching. I hate that. Hand tracking means you want it to be tactile. I want to touch the menu. So I want to make sure that the things that I need to interact with are within touching distance. Or, what I do indeed like about the Apple Vision is indeed eye tracking. Although eye tracking, I think you need to, in your game design, to keep in mind that that's potentially an optional thing. But yeah, where you're looking at something and you make a gesture to select that one. But I really like the going towards a more tactile approach where you touch the thing that that gets you somewhere, or that interacts with you. Because I really hate, quote unquote hate, so many of the current VR games that are controller based that really focus on the fact that you have buttons and stuff. Um, and switch things on buttons. There's so many games where it says, okay, to do this, press the B button, where I'm sort of going like, it makes much more sense if I do that with my hands. Like, picking something up should always be grab and things like that. I can't think of a really good example right now. However, like I said, there are a lot of apps and games where it is going to be important to have something in your hands for stability, for tactile things, for feedback. My personal wish, and where I think that controllers are eventually going to evolve in, are the data gloves, where you have a glove that does all the tracking, but that also has, the resistors. I don't know if you guys saw the open source version of that, where I can't remember his name, Lucas, I think, who built it as a university project and put all the plans online, and is now in like version 6 or 7 of his idea, where you've got feedback and it stops you curling your hand so that you can actually feel what you're grabbing. That is where, for me, the future of games are going that need feedback, because now all of a sudden you're wearing something like a glove or whatever that is going to give you that tactile feedback that I think is very important. However, when I look at the sort of use cases that really focus on AR, I don't want it. I don't want to walk outside with my AR glasses and gloves. I want to walk outside and have normal hand tracking, because in that scenario, the tactility isn't important. It is what I see in my glasses and how it interacts with the world around me. That's the hero. That's the thing that is important. So I see that those are not going to be mutually exclusive. They are going to be complementary. We're going to get experience in games where it's going to be important to have a controller or a glove. We're going to have games and applications in, most likely more towards the AR space, where pure optical hand tracking is going to be the hero, the winner. I don't think one is going to be replacing the other. They're going to be two separate ecosystems. Learn 7. I agree. Learn 7 years, and my VR game runs on a GTX 970 and mobile via OpenXR Quest 2. Good point about performance. Cool. Yeah, absolutely, Simon. You know, the earlier that there, the more you learn. And that really is, in my eyes, what VR is about. It's learning. It's about the fact that the concepts and game ideas that are prevalent on desktop and which will stay for years, hopefully on desktop, because I love playing those games, they don't translate one-on-one to VR. There are a whole bunch of new things to learn in VR. What is fun to play in VR? What sort of mechanics work in VR? How am I using my hands? You know, like I said, so many games that just are so used to using buttons, so they translate that to a controller game. No, rethink it. Tactility. How, you know, I've got these hands in it. How can I make my hands interact with my game instead of pressing buttons and pointing at things? Um, the longer you are in there and the earlier you get into VR development, the more ahead you get, the more likely it is that you eventually get to that skill level where you make that game that nobody else has thought of, and you're gonna have a winner in your hands. That's really what I believe. And like I said, because there's VR is still a relatively small market. You can grow with that market, but also you can still stand out in that market. You know, it's not a saturated market yet. While you know you can make $1 million on an iPhone game, but the chance that you actually um, are going to be that person who is going to get noticed for your game is getting slimmer and slimmer because there's millions of people making iPhone games. Um, and the same with traditional games. I would just like an artist and a level designer. Yeah, that's the thing that I am struggling with as well. I'm just a developer. Um, I'm not an artist. I'm also not an audio guy, which is why I'm stuck on my little drum game at the moment. Um, so yeah, um, I'm in that same boat, and I think a lot of us are in that boat. And that's just a matter of hanging in there and socializing. And you know, now that the pandemic is over, game jams are being held locally again, so go to your local game jam, meet people there. Go to, you know, look at meetup, and go to your local game developer meetups. I'm slowly starting to do that here in Sydney. I went to an end of year meetup party of the IGGA here in Sydney, and I had a blast. Met a whole bunch of new people, and I'm really hoping to do that a lot more in 2024, um, and to start making more contacts and stuff like that, and hopefully eventually meet some people who might want to. Well, I've already met some people who want to make games with me, so there are ideas. We'll see if they come to fruition, but hopefully at some point. Mero, any plans for another VR game jam in the future? Absolutely. The game excuse me, my throat's going. No, as I was saying, the game jam was such a success. We learned a lot from it, so we're definitely planning on doing more. We're still debating the frequency, how often we want to have one. We're currently thinking about having like a summer one and a winter one, so in half a year to do the next one. This also takes quite a bit of time to organize and you know, and to prepare stuff for it. We're also one of the things that we learned is 3 days is not enough. So the next one is not going to be a weekend. The next one is going to be a whole week. So yeah, once there are you know, concrete plans, then obviously we'll talk about it. But yes, absolutely, we're going to do more VR game jams. Carpenter, thank you for joining. Thanks for the Godot VR tutorials. They were a great help when I tried a bit of. Very good. Yeah, well, that's what they're for. Unfortunately, well, Malcolm's been posting a bunch of things on his YouTube channel around XR tools in Godot 4. Obviously, you know, I'm a bit behind on the Godot 4 front. I've just been too busy working on Godot 4. But I do have some plans on doing some Godot 4 focused tutorials. It's actually one of the reasons why tonight I want to go and have a look at the documentation part and see if we can do a few things there. Although we have been talking for a good 2.5 hours, so I hope I have time left over for that. Although I'm having fun with this, I'm hoping you guys find it interesting so far. But yeah, that is definitely something that I'm hoping to do more with. Another reason doing VR, you learn performance VR and scaling to non VR give you more forgiveness on performance. Yeah. Although I am very skeptical when it comes to people trying to make games that are meant for both desktop and VR. I think that the problem that you have is that if you want to make a great VR game, you want to work towards the strengths of VR. You really want to go down that path of how am I using my hands in this game? Um, that ability to move around and to pick things up and to interact with the world with your body, with your hands, which is something that you cannot do on desktop in a non-VR game. So if you crack that code, so to speak, if you come up with a concept for a VR game that needs that physicality, then you first of all, I think you got a winner on your hands. I think that's the recommendation that I have for everyone to do. Um, but you also have a game that doesn't translate to desktop, or would be very bad. It's also why it's also why I'm very on the fence of the UI, the Unreal VR mod that came out this week. On one side, I love it. I think it is something that our industry needs to bring more people into VR. I do think that a lot of games that are desktop orientated can be adapted to VR in that way and be a fun experience. And just the fact that it's in VR give you something extra, even though the game doesn't fundamentally change. Um, but I think for VR to really, really be successful, we need more games that are focusing on the things that make VR special and that you cannot do without. Now, I say that full well knowing that one of the games that I've been playing most over the holidays was Elite Dangerous, which is a game that works perfectly on desktop where VR is almost a gimmick, but at the same time, is something that adds something so special. And again, this is I think why so many people bought a PlayStation VR to just to play Gran Turismo, especially in the sim racing world. Um, VR adds something to games like that makes them much easier to play. And I even with Elite Dangerous, I can no longer play Elite Dangerous without a VR headset. I just get lost. The fact that I can't look around and I can't look where my enemies are. Um, yeah. Um, so yeah, I want to caution anybody who wants to build VR games to focus too much, to not focus too much on making a game that is both playable in VR and non-VR. If you want to be successful in the VR market, learn what works in VR and what makes VR special, and then come up with a game that makes use of that. And then you have a winner on your hands. Then you have a game that will knock people off their feet because it gives them an experience that they haven't had before. Oh, is there going to be a way to give Godot like custom room information as well? Like if we wanted to use data from AR kits or a 3D scanner? Well, right now, like I said, I'm only talking about what Meta is making available through their room scan technology on the Quest 3. On the Quest 2, you have the ability to draw it out. So they've already been playing with this for a little while. It's called their Scene API. So on the Quest 2, you go into Scene API mode, and it just, instead of just drawing out your floor and your guardian, you have tools where you can draw where your walls are, so you can map um, your room. You can map where your furniture is and that sort of thing. But on the Quest 2, it's still relatively basic and very hands-on. And then on the Quest 3, they're using a depth sensor to actually scan your room and bring that information in. There's now a mode on the Quest where the point cloud that it creates to recognize where everything is in your room can be uploaded to your account so that the next time that you start things up, you have access to that information and your Quest knows where it is and it retains all that information. And then there's an API to bring that information into the game engine. And I haven't gotten far enough yet to exactly know how that works on the Quest. I've only experimented with similar logic on ARKit. So I did in Godot 3, that all worked. I had ARKit working on Godot 3. There's actually a iOS plugin that adds ARKit functionality. It hasn't been maintained, so it is ARKit for where it was about 3 or 4 years ago. But that had the same thing, that you could map out your room and you would just get locations where your desk was and where your walls are, and then you got mesh information from the topography that the phone measured, that you can then use to create collision shapes or occlusion shapes or things like that. So yeah, there is stuff that is happening on that front. What that exactly will look like is something that I am still I can't predict, because I just haven't worked enough with it yet. So the discussions are ongoing about what we want to do there, and again, what has been made possible there. We are obviously limited to what functionality Meta exposes. So yeah, one thing that I must say that I'm actually quite glad at is that Meta is taking privacy quite seriously here. They obviously through Facebook have had some scandals. So let's say that in that way. I don't know if that's the right way. Yeah, well, they were scandals. The whole privacy breach thing that they did. So it seems that at least with the Quest, they're taking that seriously. So we have limited ability of access to information and the detail in that information. For instance, we don't have access, even though a lot of people ask of that. We don't have access to the camera images. We are not allowed to see what the camera sees and do something with that. We can only work with the information that is distilled from that. Now, they did open up an API to get the depth sensor information, because that's the way that you can do occlusion for putting your hands behind virtual objects. Don't know how that's going to affect that. I know it is all behind permission, so the user will be asked, like, "Hey, this application wants to see what your depth sensor sees. Are you okay with that?" And some people will say no, and then you have to make sure that you work around the fact that you're not allowed to do the depth sensor stuff. But I think that generally speaking, that is a really healthy and good thing for them to do. Especially again on a consumer device. On consumers, it pays for bad actors to make or to abuse any functionality that is opened up. That could potentially be dangerous. So, alrighty. We're nearly 3 hours. No, why does it say 1.5 hours? Am I so bad in calculating? We started at 8 o'clock. Why does it say only? Oh, because I started a bit late. Okay, so yeah, we're 1.5 hours in. We're nearing 10 o'clock. I'm planning to stream today till about 12, so we've got about 2 hours left. I'm running out of things that I wanted to talk about. So unless people have more questions that they want to ask, and we can explore some ideas, I am thinking about having a look at our documentation and seeing what sort of things I want to start polishing up, and maybe we can talk about whatever comes up as we are looking at some of this stuff. So before I do that, let me go and have a look at what I put in here. So I've got just that. Is that all still nicely in place? Or, yep, we are. Actually, let's go checking out master, because I think those have since been, not origin, upstream. There we go. So now they're all official. Pusher into master. I just want to update my own copy of that. Sweet. Okay, so the other thing that I need to do, this should be much more up to date because I recently fixed a few typos and things. But I want to make sure that I've got everything open. So that's Godot docs, and I'm just going to do that in a separate tab as well. This one is actually kind of fun because I can show you guys a little bit about how the Godot documentation system works. Helps if I put my fingers in the right place. There we go. That has also been done. All right, let's actually start with the documentation because obviously we have this beautiful doc website that we maintain. And below here, I'm just going to start with a class reference because this stuff all comes out of actually out of Godot. So when we are developing a Godot application, or the Godot core, there is a not core dev. There is a folder here called doc, and inside of that there's a folder called classes. And for every node in Godot, there is an XML file. And inside of that XML file, we have the documentation of that class. So we detail what all the members are, what all the signals are, what all the methods are, what the class itself is for. And this is what you see when you're inside of Godot and you go to the help pages inside of Godot. That's all this information. So that's all compiled into the application when we run it. However, we also generate all of this out of that. So this is a carbon copy of that data, but nicely formatted for the web. However, everything else that you see here, so all these pages about getting started, the manual, so where we're working today on the XR stuff, that is coming from Godot, from this GitHub repository. And everybody is allowed to jump in, just like with Godot itself, and make changes and put in a pull request to say, hey, I would like to have something changed. Now, everything that I've done so far has already been accepted. Really cool. Also, if you find something wrong here and you don't want to fix it yourself, you can raise an issue and say, hey, I've had this problem. Someone should probably do something about it. However, it is very much appreciated for anybody who just takes the extra step and says, you know what, if I see some spelling mistakes or I think that something's badly described, I'm going to do my own change for that, my own pull request where I said, I think it should be this. And then you have a chance that people say, we don't agree with that. Or we have a good chance that people will say, yay, that's really cool. Thank you so much. Anything to make things better. Now, interestingly enough, the class reference and the manuals are also translated to other languages. I've never looked into that part. So I think if you go to the Learn to Contribute page, and I'll go there just for fun, just to have a quick look. Translating the documentation. Look at that. There's actually a section about that. Actually, a whole page about that. About how translations work. So, well, I think that that a big part of my audience is probably following along just fine on the English version of the documentation. Know that the documentation has been translated into many other languages, but also it is a complete community effort here. So anybody who would like to see improvements made to the documentation in their language, have a read through this about what the process is to help out with that, because that is not through, as far as I'm aware, not through the Godot docs. That is through a separate system where we keep translations of everything. Oh, Simon, you mean the forum? You mean the new forum? Is everybody aware that we have a new forum called forum.godot.org? And I better not go into things that are private, so let's not do that online. Because obviously, as a board member, I do have access to certain areas that others do not. However, go and check out those forums. I am still trying to get the forum owners to give us a little XR area. They may have actually already created it, but again, I'm not gonna play around on on a site where I have access to some of the the private channels. That wouldn't be appreciated by people, I think. But yeah, so yeah, check out the forum. It's pretty cool. It's new. It's good. Though in the end, if you do want to find me and talk to me, the best way remains, as I've said before, the Godot Discord. That's where I hang out most. So yeah, back to the documentation. When you want to make changes to this, it's a matter of doing PRs on that thing. So we'll do a few of that today. It'll be fun to talk about that and show that in live. In the same way for the demo projects, it's just a repository. So anybody who wants to help out by fixing up mistakes or participating in any other way, yeah, it's very appreciated by the team. So definitely, just keep in mind that we don't put really large projects onto the demo projects. It's really meant for tiny little examples to do to really basically support the documentation that we have. We have some bigger demo projects on the GitHub as separate repos. I want to add documentation for GD extensions because it's currently lacking, but I currently lack the knowledge to write it. So I'm working on learning that now. Lemon, make sure that if you are doing stuff like that, you'll see on the community side. So I'm always talking about the Discord. The Discord is, oh yeah, here's the forum. Is the other one here as well? All right. Okay, so we're going to scroll down in a minute. So the Discord is really about helping people who use Godot to make games. So if you have questions about how to use Godot, or you just want to be part of like our XR community and show off what you're working on, have fun discussions with other VR developers, that is the best place to be. And like I said, I hang out there, Malcolm hangs out there, and we try and answer people's questions as much as we can. Obviously, we have limited time, but we are very available there to answer either Godot XR, wide questions or specifically to XR tools. However, there is another place, which is the Godot contributors chat. Now, that one is a server that we run ourselves. Again, anybody really is welcome there. However, we're more strict about what things are being talked about because it is really a place for people who actually contribute to the engine, so who actually want to make code changes to the engine, discuss those things. On there, however, there is a really good GD extensions channel, and there are people there who would love input and help and feedback when it comes to improving the documentation. So if you're willing to put that effort in, if you're willing to do work on the tutorials, that is a good place to discuss what you want to do before you go down a rabbit hole and do stuff and suddenly they say, but yeah, hold on, that's not really what we had in mind. That's in the plugin section, I think the is it? No, that's running code in the editor or something. I wonder what part GD extensions is under. Well, that's a whole different topic outside of what I'm doing. But somewhere in here, we should have a whole section on GD extension. I'm not quite sure where that is. Maybe no, I don't have GD extension there, but that's just, is that just a basic example? That's probably just a basic example. That's what that's still a pretty decent write up, this one. Anyway, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole because we're talking about XR stuff here. But yeah, I love GD extension. I want to actually, I have one project that I want to do in GD extension that I'm thinking about doing on stream at some point in time. So, you know, again, that's also something, let me know if you guys are interested in that, whether you want me to spend some time on stream on GD extension. But yeah, any help there, you know, and it goes for any part of Godot, really, whether you want to work on the docs or whether you want to, you know, help out code Godot. Help is always appreciated. But do keep in mind, I want to stress that, you know, when you look at the Godot contributors chat, that is really for people who are actually working on the engine. If you just want to help out in our VR community, including if you want to help out, you know, with XR tools, the Discord is a much better place to hang out. That's really the place to ask user questions and participate in that work. All right. Where are we? So let's start with the setting up XR document. It's been a while since I last read this. Actually, I want to go to the latest. So one of the things that's also really interesting, stable is a snapshot of the documentation based on a specific release. So stable shows the documentation as it was when 4.2 was released. Latest is a representation of exactly what is in our Godot docs repository. So anytime that a change gets merged, a process starts that will automatically update the documentation on the latest. So this is really as up to date as it gets. There's a small delay there. It takes a little while for everything to compile, and that actually reminds me that we better go into docs here. And I always forget what it is. There's a script there called make, make.bat. And it takes a parameter, what type I want to make it. I think there's like an option to turn this into a PDF if you want to do that. We're going to start that up. And if you have all the tool sets, because you need to install things, there's a page somewhere that tells you what you need to install. I think it's on the, probably on the README here. Yep, there's a whole see, contributing, content guidelines, building a manual. There we go. So yeah, there's a whole page about how you actually set this up. You can see that there's quite a few instructions to run before before you get to the point that you can actually run make HTML. But well, this went pretty quickly because I built and updated it I think 2 days ago. If you do this from scratch, it takes a while. It takes a good, I don't know, 20 minutes, something like that. So you can imagine that that also applies to the documentation here. Actually, I do want to go back to where we came from. So that is when, you know, when you merge this, it takes a while before this updates. It's like 20, 30 minutes, but it is automated. So any PR that gets merged is automatically reflected in latest, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I did write this a little while ago. So let me just very quickly go through this, unless people want me to narrate this a little bit more. But this is our introduction. So we talk a bit about that we have an XR system. Obviously, we implement different interfaces. So while OpenXR is basically what 90% of the time we use, there are other options like the Tilt 5 interface, or you can even write your own interface if you want to. I do want to change some of this at some point because, you know, I designed some of this stuff 7 years ago. There's a couple of things I've learned since then that could potentially be better. But then it also talks about, you know, some of the special necessities of XR. This is actually the other one that I want to do on stream, and might be something to do tonight if we have enough time. And also that might be a subject for my next stream, because I want that as a example on the on our demo project as well. So the scenario where right now we are just rendering our output to the main viewport, that then gets shown on the HMD, and if you're on PC, that also gives you a spectator view. However, if you want to see something different on screen to what your user is seeing in the headset, you can do the headset work in a separate viewport. An example of that is simply wanting to have a third person camera, or to have a camera that follows the player so that you can, remove the wonkiness, because obviously you got all your head movement in there, or you might want to do, an overlay with a camera, which is something that we handled on stream a little while ago. Or, you want to make a game like, what's it again? Nobody Stop Talking or Things Explode, where the guy with the headset on sees a bomb and the guy behind it's a multiplayer game on one system. The guy who looks at the screen sees the a manual on how to defuse the bomb, and the guy behind the screen needs to give instructions to the guy with the headset on how to defuse the bomb. It's a really cool concept, really cool game, but it requires something like that. Now, the problem with this is, obviously, a game like that has to be a PC VR game. You can't do that on a Quest because you don't have a separate screen. But when you are talking about a game where you want to see a third person view on screen and a normal view in the headset, but you want to publish your game both on a Quest where that's not available and on PC VR, you obviously need to recognize that and you need to support both systems. So that is something that I actually want to make a demo project for, that has that solution, that has that third person camera, that shows on screen, that has the HMD viewport to show that, and to actually switch between that setup for PC when you export to PC and a different setup when you export to mobile. So yeah, I think that will be a very fun one to build. I don't think we have enough time for that tonight. Maybe we make a start. I can't promise anything. But I think that would probably be a really good subject for the next stream. No, that only, yeah, so we can only have one interface supporting output, but there currently aren't any mixed interfaces anyway, so that's really not a problem. Then we have a very brief explanation of our origin, camera, and controller nodes. And then we go through our prerequisites here. So in Godot 3, we just needed a plugin and everything just worked. In Godot 4, we actually need to do a bit more. So we need to turn on shaders, we need to turn on OpenXR, so that's handled here. There's a bunch more options here by now, so that might be something that we want to update. And then obviously, everybody's seen this 100 times. Our setup with origin, camera, and 2 XR controllers, left hand, right hand, set it on default. I also want to make a, did I have something? We have the XR action map thing there. So that is something that I'm planning to work on a bit more at some point, or maybe also do a video on. I am not sure yet. This is where I wanted to get to. So we've done all the setup, but we're now going to this script. So when we're looking at this script, it should be very familiar to everybody. Hey, Sin. Okay. So all we're doing here, and I'm not planning to change this first page because I haven't seen anything other than maybe a screenshot that needs to be changed. I don't see anything wrong here. This is all pretty much still up to date. But what are we doing here? We are getting our XR interface. Because we've got a tick box, we are checking whether it's successfully initialized. And if so, we do 2 steps. First is we make sure that our vsync is disabled, which is probably in 4.3 going to be less important? I'm not 100% sure. No, for PCVR, it's still important. And then obviously we're turning our UseXR on. However, as we're looking at, that's a fair bit more involved. So the thing that I am thinking of changing, so we have our setting up XR and then we have our deploy Android. I actually want to put a section in between here, is discussing a more advanced version of that start VR. Although there's also part of me that wonders if it should be under advanced topics. No, I think I'm going to put a one in between, because I think in the introduction to XR tools, this also needs new screenshots at some point. No, I'm actually not talking about using the start VR script in XR tools. Okay. So let me actually first switch to, have I still got it in there? No, of course not. It doesn't remember enough projects. Yay. Okay, I want to start in here. First things first, I'm going to open this one. Keep it open. And then I'm going to go and open that one. Is there a quick way to compare these? Do I have WinDiff? No, I don't have WinDiff. No, and I don't want to use Edge. Why are you opening up an Edge? Okay, and is there not a WinDiff option in here? That would actually be kind of neat. Is there, where is it? Where's the option to see my installed plugins? Where is that? Welcome, show, documentation, as a playground, show release notes, video. No, that's not what I'm after. Well, you can see that I usually don't actually look for this stuff in Visual Code. Oh, hold on. Is it maybe just over here? No, that's GitHub. Extensions. Yay! Diff. Do we have a built-in diff? That only has 3.5 stars. Compare this technology within a file. Cross files or to the clipboard. It has 5 stars. Is that what I want? Huh. Okay. That is actually really cool. Previous selection, protected clipboard. Now I want to do compare 2 different files. I don't know. I'm looking for, that's only 2.5 stars, but get history diff. That's is already working. Take a diff of 2 files. In curve, right click, select as first file for diff. Second. This is a downside, I think, of tools like this is you have 24 options. How do I know which one is a recommended one and would actually do what I wanted to do? I do like this as an idea, though. I can just do diff between 2. So 1, and then go to 2. And then it shows that. So in theory, I think that it probably copies it into a... All right, let's have a look if that works. So installed, that was pretty quick. Oh, did it just... There we go. So let's go, select all. It didn't enable it. Really? Okay, it's enabled. Okay, let's just to be safe, let's reopen this guy. Here we go. Compare text with previous. No. Select text to compare. Cool. Compare text with previous selection. That is just a normal built-in stuff, isn't it? So it is actually, that is not from that plugin, I think. But that is exactly what I wanted to see because it shows that they are exactly the same, which is actually what I want. Because the whole idea that I had with this Start VR, because this is actually based on the Start VR script in Tools, but I wanted to have a generic one. Now, there is a bug in this one, so that's one of the things that we will fix. Now, a very tiny bug. But I wanted to have this script that did all the standard setup that you would just add into your project. Actually, a good thing to do right now, I think, is to just start up Godot. What version of Godot did? Oh, not 3. No, I don't want. No, cancel. I did in 3. Let's just do it in 4.2.1. Disable. Works. Really? Why does it always start in my user folder? Let's see if I can change the default folder that it starts in. Okay, Godot projects, XR. Let's just go for this guy first. Import was in 4.1. Okay, let's not do that then. Let's start up 4.1. I don't want to convert that at the moment, because for what we are doing, that is good enough. So this is a very simple example of character-centric. So we have a character body player model here. So a character with a collision shape, and then we have our camera set up and some logic. And then in here, there's a bunch of logic for centering it, which is basically what is described in the room scale under the character body solution. So while this one is slightly more worked out, than what I'm showing here, it is in principle the same solution. Now, there are some improvements on this that I wouldn't mind doing. However, I don't want that example to stray away too far from the documentation, and the improvements would make things a little bit more complex that the documentation wouldn't be as easy to follow, and that doesn't work either. So I think I'm going to keep that part of this the way that it is. However, one of the things that we can see, if I remember correctly, yeah, I've just got the Start VR script on my main node. It can be anywhere else that we want it. It doesn't really matter where we run this. We could even do it as a singleton, I think, unless it's on something else. What we see in XR tools, and something that maybe I should be doing here as well, is that I actually don't put it on main, but we add a is it just a node, or is it node 3D? Yeah, node 3D. We just add a node 3D node, and we put our script here. I'm obviously not going to double this up. And then call that, startup VR, just so that it's easier to find and you can still create your own main script. However, for our example here, we're just going to keep it in main. That's good enough. However, there is definitely one bug, which is that needs to actually be smaller or equal. So let's go and fix that up in both here and here. So that should now show that I have, because it is, yep, that's updated, good. So we want to do the same thing here. We're gonna fix those up right now. And we're just gonna go and create a PR for that. So checkout -b fix start PR script. Dots. There we go. Git commit fix typo in start PR script for selecting refresh. Origin. So yeah, that was a really simple fix, but an important one. So let's start with that one. And that now, of course, means that we need to go here. We need to go here. Found in the start. Examples. If you get the desired headset frame rate to say 90 FPS, it would only select a lower one. Now it will. All right, there we go. Easy does it. That is super simple. Just XR, and I would classify it as a bug. And I don't really think that matters. So let's go create pull request. Blink. And that should just show that we are doing that. Perfect. Cool. All right. So with that done, I think we need to start working on our HTML page. Or on our HTML, on our document page. Okay. So, sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit because I am trying to find out where I should start, which is here. No, not. I'm still on translation page there. It's interesting. So back to basic tutorial. So we said setting up XR scene, and then here is our Godot script. Okie dokie. Right. And there's also a C# version of this. Cool. So yes. And that's there. That's actually here. It's properly typed. Okay. So now I want to go into our docs. Have I got that still there? Yeah, I still have that there from last time. Cool. Cool. All righty. So this one's going to be interesting because I'm going to be writing the explanation of every bit of that file. And we get to talk about every little bit. So let's hope that that means that people will learn something out of that, which is kind of cool. So let's just create a new file here, and we're going to call that better start. XR start. RST. So all the documents are RST files. Now we have an index in here where we can say which one we want in there. So we're going to do that after deploying to Android. We're going to put in a better XR start script. And that will introduce our entry in between here. Now I don't do this every day, so I will have a quick look at how the other ones are done. Let's go and do that. So we need to have this header thing that describes what this, or sort of gives a link into this. So that should be the same. Better XR start scripts. Hold on. I'm gonna setting up XR, deploying. Is that actually not? So do we have a full description there? Where's that coming from? Where is that description coming from? It's not from here. So it's, oh, because it's still setting up XR. Okay, so I actually want to rename this to a better XR script, which means we're going to rename that file to a better. So it is turning that into the description, which is kind of important. So a better XR script. Cool. So a better no, don't autocomplete that. Stop it. Don't you just love it when your computer thinks that it's smarter than it should be? Ooh. My chat got disconnected for a second, it says. Haha. Okay. Is that always needed? No. Okay. In our how do we do links again? How do we do that? Here we go. And that was actually a good one because I want to link to that. In setting up XR, we introduced introduced. Why can't I spell? There we go. We introduced a startup script that initializes setup, which we added, we used as our script node. This script performs the minimum required any given interface. When using OpenXR, there are a number of improvements we should do here. For this, we've created a more elaborate starting script. You will find these used in our example projects. If you are using XR tools, okay, I want to make that alternatively. If you are using XR tools, the doc. Where are we? Introducing tools. It contains a version of this script with updated some features to tools. Below, we will detail out the script used in our demos and explain Ports. Okay, so that's just a bit of introduction. Let's have a look. Where's my code? Hey, stop making noise. Okay, so setting up XR is there? Yeah, here we go. So here we can see how we can introduce different scripts. So we're going to go and copy this bit because that's the same. Do I want to have? Yes, I do. So the first part is going to be new scripts. This one. Okay. I'm going to also add this one in. Actually, I'm not going to worry about that just yet. And now we're going to go, left this open. And we're going to go and copy these in there. That's just spaces. Okay. Boink, boink, boink. Okay. I'm just going to copy this a little bit, and I'm not going to worry about the rest just yet. Oh, that already, oh yeah, that's because we copied from there. But then obviously this needs to be OpenXR. And we'll check because I have a C# version of that that code as well. Actually, do I have that handy? Maybe we should look that up. Because for that, I need to go to Malcolm. And we need to have this crypto OpenXR. No, thank you. C#. And we have our start VRCS here. And there we go. So see, because I think for that project I've got the exact same start script. So okay, cool. There's our variables. Actually, maybe we should even split that into 2 bits. Let's start with signals. Actually, oh, let's just go and copy that first. Boom. We do signals for our script. There we go. And let's just copy this whole thing over here. We're slowly going to replace that. I just want to have the header in there just to help with placement. And then obviously here we want to get rid of this. And we're going to get rid of this. And obviously we're going to describe what we're adding here. Okay, now before we continue, I think this is a good chance to again run our make. Okay, and we go back here. And actually, after we run our make, in our build folder here, we'll find an HTML folder, and there will be our whole website. Now, in this case, I'm going to save myself from clicking around by going into the XR folder here, and I can go nicely to the index. And now we immediately see that our better XR script has been added. And when we go in here, we can see whether our page are going to be looking good. There's some dragons here. I like dragons. Dragons are cool. All right. So that should link back indeed to our page there. That's working. That should link to our introduction page. That's working. So it's always good to make sure that as you're writing these doc pages to check, often for this sort of stuff. So we're going to start here with our new signals that we add in. And obviously our signals get done like that. So this is my node 3D. I might actually want to go and rename that. I think that is something that Malcolm forgot to do. And for that, I just want to quickly, this is a nice thing of having the live one open and the dev one open. You can have this one nicely here. And we can see that this is actually still called my node 3D. Do we want to change that? Because I'm thinking actually of calling that start VR. And again, we haven't really class named that here. Now let's just keep that my node 3D. Yeah, I'm sure. Now the other thing that I'm wondering about is whether I should remove that bit. Now the thing that I'm worried about is if I remove the lines that I already had, and maybe also from following dots here. Yeah, I think that makes more sense. Well, let's see if that looks correctly. So that means that we would get rid of these. But again, I wonder if it doesn't mind that I've got a double indent there. We will see if that works. It also means I actually want those dots here. And I want some dots here. Just to sort of see where that is in the... Maybe I should remove the dots altogether. I don't know. That's actually something that people can react to. So we can see that actually it's removed my extra indentation there. You know, I do that indentation for a reason. You know what? I'm actually going to see if this then works. Let's see if it will accept that. Which actually, for consistency's sake, means that I should be doing this as well. Okay. Yeah, that's doing exactly what it wanted to do. Cool. So we get this bit, and then we get this bit. All right, let's go and describe what we're actually doing. Okay. Do we do it above the code or below the code? I think it should be above the code. We are going to, now we are introducing 3 signals to our script. So that our game can add further logic to the focus lost and focus. Oh, it's like focus lost. Should I put this bullet points? I think that might be nicer as bullet points. Yeah, so that's bullet points. Okay, so focus lost is emitted when the player takes off their headset or when the player enters the menu system. Of the headset. Is that good English? I'm not sure. By the way, I hope that my my chat's still working. Hold on for a second. I'm gonna just check something. Hmm. Okay. Test. Yeah, that's still working. But why am I not seeing what's going on? Play. Oh, okay. That's good. Sorry about that, guys. It's my stream was complaining about something, so I just wanted to make sure that things still work. I hope everybody is still watching along. It's been a bit quiet in chat, and I got a really weird disconnection message there, which was interesting. But it seems to still be working, at least on my end. Fingers crossed. Okay, where was I? I was explaining the signals. I wonder how that actually works with C#. That's interesting. I'm just going to stick to the GD script names, but all right. So focus loss is emitted when the player takes off their headset. The game should react by pausing. Okay. Oops. Let's see in edit. There's our word wrap here. View. Word wrap. Thank you. Focus gained is emitted when the player puts their headsets back on or exists menu system and returns to the game. That game should react by unpausing. Pose recentered is emitted when the headset requests the player's position to be reset. The game should react accordingly. Because that obviously depends on what sort of game you're making. You know, whether what sort of reset it is. So basically, it means that you return back to your start position or face the right way. So this for instance happens when your menu is here, but you are looking that way, and you press, you hold your little recenter button, and then it expects that is now forward, and that should be, that this should do that. But because the headset and the XR runtime has no idea what forward is, your game's responsible for doing the right thing there. All right, so here we go. We introduce a few new variables. Introduce a few new variables to our script as well. Okay, maximum refresh rates will control the headset's refresh rate if this is supported by the headset. Okay, XR interface holds a reference to our XR interface. This already existed, but we now type it to get full OpenXR. That actually needs to be a reference. Yeah. Okay, so we can probably steal that here. There we go. Let's make that a nice reference. There we go. Okay. So let's put the last one in, and then we're going to check if everything looks good again. So XR is focused. Will be set through whenever our application, our game focus. Cool. All right. So run our make again and check if everything looks the way that we expect. Six degrees of crispy bacon. I love myself some crispy bacon. Oh man, you're making me hungry now. Equals. Not quite sure what you mean with equals. Okay, so is this looking good? Reintroducing, I think that should be a colon, semicolon, whatever the right word is. Got that. Colon link, and here, maximum control, interface, focus. I think that's good. I wonder if that should be a different, oh well, we'll get feedback on our PR if they want that to be differently formatted. That's good. There we go. Perfect. All right, so what's the next bit? Where's our script? Where is our script? We have that open. Let's come and close a few things, shall we? Oh, we did not have that open here. Where did we have that open? Here we have that open. Is it this? No, that's the Oh, we have it open here. Haha. Okay. Yeah, ready function. Let's go and first make some room. Updated ready function. Like, okay. Don't need that anymore. Something we just decided. Oh. There we go. Copy. Paste. This bit I hate. We just have to go through all this. Actually, oh, and we need to make sure that that is nicely converted to spaces. Make sure we're consistently using spaces. Consistent. I know that tabs is normal in Godot, but for some reason our examples use spaces. I don't know why. Or am I just suddenly screwing that all up, which is very possible. But as far as I know, this is all using spaces. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Is our script looking the same here? Looks pretty much the same. I do like that Malcolm took the effort to put a little bit of extra stuff in there. And that already uses spaces. Cool. So with that, we have yeah, it needs an extra indentation. How lovely is that? There we go. Okay. We have a few extra steps we perform in stats. Ready function. Okay, let's go and quickly check that against what it is in defaults. Defaults, we just print that. So we have the get viewport that I do separately. That is something that I think is less interesting to name specifically. No. The ready function is mostly remains the same, but we hook up a number of signals that will be emitted by the OpenXR interface. We have that somewhere here. Yeah. Always want to keep the references in there. It makes for better reading and it makes it easy to navigate the help files. Okay, okay. Let's keep it civilized, people. Nah, it's funny. I like it. Good joke. So the ready function mostly remains the same. However, we hook up a number of signals. Oops, don't do that. We'll provide more detail about these signals as we implement. Wait. So the other thing is we also quit our application if we couldn't successfully initialize. Sorry. Well, less important. Now this can be a choice. If you are making a mixed mode game, you could switch between. You could set up the VR mode of your game on success, and that the non-VR mode of your game on failure. However, when running a VR-only application on a stand-alone, that it is nicer to exit on failure than to hang the system. Because that is what happens. If you fail here, you get the nice 3 dots and bye-bye. Although, you know, there's probably some things you can do to put an alert on or something. But yeah, we just quit here if it goes wrong. Okie do. That is that. So what is the next bit? All right, session begun. Ding, ding, ding. Session ready. What is the session begun? Is the thing, and then OpenXR pun session begun. Why did I say that? I don't know. Actually, it is the ready state, but that's just weird how that is. How that is described on session begun. No, that. Okay. Cool. Same thing again. Go to our tabs, and then we go. After we do that, we're gonna go and double check if everything is working again. Okay, grab that, and then we can go. Okay. Cool. Pretty big one. Okay. Okay. And we grab this bit. Okay. Boink. Oh, no. Boink. And boink. That all looks good. All right, cool. So on session begun. This come on, load type boss. This signal is emitted by OpenXR when our session is set up. This means the headset all let's run through setting everything up and is ready to begin receiving content. I guess that's a good enough way to describe it. As only at this time various information properly available. The main thing we do here is to check our headsets refresh. We also check the available refresh rates reported by the XR runtime to determine if we want to set that to a higher refresh rate. Finally, we match our headset refresh rate. No, we match our physics update rate to our headset. Godot runs at a physics update rate of 60 updates per second by default, while headsets run at a minimum of 72 and another headsets up to 144 frames second. Not matching the physics update rate will cause stuttering as we all right, I think that's good enough as a description. So that's really what we're doing over here is we're getting the refresh rate that the headset is currently set to. We then get the refresh rates that the XR runtime reports the headset supports. If there are none, that's fine. If there's one, we always use the one. But if there's multiple, we're going to see if there is a rate that is higher than our current rate. We never make our rate go lower. We only go higher. But we have a ceiling of our maximum refresh rate. If our default rate is higher than our maximum refresh rate, well, that's just what it is. If it changes, we're going to update our display refresh rate to the rate that we just decided. And then, like I said, at the end, we're going to match our physics update rate to our refresh rate. For most headsets on like an Index or whatever, they usually run at a fixed refresh rate or at a refresh rate that is fixed in OpenXR or in SteamVR in this case itself. So we generally don't get the ability to change it in game. But on the Quest, this is very important. And on the Quest, it is even more important because if you mark that your game is supports, like, say, the Quest 1 and the Quest 2, then the default rate will be the lowest supported rate by those. So it will immediately default to 72 hertz. And you generally, for games that, if you've got a well optimized game, you want that to be higher whenever possible. Now, there is an argument to say, and that is a valid argument, that you actually have a menu in your game where you have a drop down list that you can overwrite this. And that's a really good idea if you want to build that. But in our default start script, we've chosen to, and then save for XR tools, we've chosen to do this as an approach. I think that this little bit of logic is slightly different in XR tools, but because I think we select the nearest frame rate, so we could actually go slightly over this refresh rate. Let's say that this is set to 80, then instead of choosing 72, it will select 90 because 90 is closer than 72. And that is just because there's such a wild growth in refresh rates between headsets. We figured that you might want to go a little bit higher if you're that close, and you just didn't know. Lots and lots and lots of different options, but that is what we are what we are doing in this case. So let's go and run that and see if everything still looks good in our new script. That runs a bit longer now because it's getting longer. So we can refresh this. So we see a start here. Then we're going to go for, refresh, max refresh rate. Then we have our update function nicely here. That's looking good. Nothing weird in there. Then we have our on session begun. The signal is emitted by the bus. So we have an extra why we have that. Because again, also the idea here is that it's not just documenting the script, but also the underlying functionality, so that if people want to run their build their own version or modify it, there's some information here about what all these different steps mean. All right. So the next one we have, where did I just accidentally put a space? Over there. Okay, that's not too bad. No, here. Okay. So the next one is our visible state. So I just want to double check something. Visible state, yeah, session visible state. Okay, just been some. All right. I think if I'm right, that is where, yeah. On visible states. No, don't autocomplete things you shouldn't be autocompleting. Okay. Let's keep the signal is emitted by OpenXR. This signal is emitted by OpenXR when our game becomes visible. This is a bit of a weird token in OpenXR, but it basically means that we're now the application focus. It could be that the game just started, that we've exited a system menu, or the user has just put their headset back on. See, do we do anything else other than reporting it? Oh, actually, we already do a pause mode here, which is interesting. So, actually, no, we can keep that there. That's fine. No, actually not. So I'm actually going to take this out because we're already doing the pause automatically. So there we go. We just got that in there. Actually, let's go. Yeah, game should react accordingly to the signals. All right, boom. Receiving this signal will update our focus state. Why is okay? We always pass the state of startup, but the second time we get is me. Oh, that's right. Okay. That's really weird. So we get our visible states. That's right. That's why this one works so weird. Okay, so our description is actually not accurate. Or is it? No, because it's still. Because this is also on the. Okay, so this is actually this is why this one's weirdly named, because these are the signal names from OpenXR. When it comes visible, but is not focused. But it basically means we're in, means that our game has just started, and we're about to switch to the focused state next. The user has opened a system menu, or the user just took their headset off. Update our focus states. We'll change the process mode of our node to paused, to disabled, which will pause processing on this node and its children, and emits our focus lost signal. All right, cool. If you've added this script to your root node, this means your game will automatically pause when required. If you haven't, you can react to the signal. You can connect to the signal. Connect a method to the signal that performs additional. Here we go. I think that's good enough for our description. So let's add our code in. Boom. Okay. So this was the thing that always confused me, is just the states that the headset goes in. They could have had some better names, and I don't really know what the thought behind that is. I don't know if that was done on purpose, or whether there is, yeah, well, I don't know. It's something that's a little bit confusing, and maybe we're making an assumption, an incorrect assumption here. I'm not completely sure, but so far this seems to have been completely reliable. So we're just going to stick with it. Okay. So that's our visible state, which, yeah, again, it's kind of weird because it emits that when when we take our headset off. So the final one is on focus. There we go. Okay. This signal is emitted by OpenXR when our game gets focus. This is the completion startup. This is done at the completion of a startup. But it can also be emitted when the user exits a system menu or put their headset. Note also that when your game starts, while the user is not wearing their headset, the game stays in visible states until the user puts their snap on. Now, one thing that I want to add here as well, this gets a lot of people off guard. And actually, I'm going to make a note box of this. What is the syntax for that? That's this. While your game is in a visible state, because the user has opened the system menu, Godot will keep rendering frames, and head tracking will remain active. So your game will remain visible in the background. However, controller and hand tracking will be disabled for this duration. Now, until user exits the system menu. And this last one especially is something that trips up so many people. Because they go into the system menu, they press the little, Oculus button. Or is it nowadays? I can't see, it's too dark. No, it's a Meta button nowadays. They actually changed the logo. When you press the Meta button, you open up the the menu system in Oculus, and it actually pauses your game. You can still move your head around, and obviously to make sure people don't get motion sick, that still updates the game. But hand tracking information stops being sent to Godot, and hand tracking information, controller information, all stops being sent to Godot, and you'll nicely see your hands fixed in place in the game, while in the menu system your hands are nicely moving around. It can be a little disconcerting. But that is an on-purpose choice that we don't have any control over. That is something that OpenXR does. That's predefined behavior. So it is very important to be aware of that. While we're in the visible state, we might keep rendering. Obviously, if the user takes the headset off, we also stop rendering. We do keep processing. So if you don't pause your game, all your animations and physics will keep on running. You just won't get any visual output. But if you keep your headset on and you just go into the system menu, again, same thing happens. Your game just keeps running. You don't pause it, then everything keeps on going. but you'll see, your hands fixed in space, which is also important that when obviously we go back to the focused state, um, then all of a sudden hand tracking and controller tracking is re-enabled. So let's say that your hand was here, or you're pressing your button with this one, but let's say that your other hand is here holding a sword when you go into the menu, and now you're interacting with the menu, and then you unpause and your hand is here and you're no longer gripping, then obviously your hand will suddenly go punk and your sword will go clink. So something to keep in mind on that you react properly to that unfocused state signal, and then later on to the focused state signal, to make sure that you do something with whatever your user has in their hands. Or let's say that the hand here, there's a something physical here, and your hand now moves here, then obviously it will get stuck on that while you're yeah, you can get into some really, really funky situations because the player temporarily had the menu open. So yeah, something to test, something to make sure that your game reacts properly on, and you don't get into weird situations. I'm just gonna put this in place. I think I want to type a little bit more text there. I just want to go and have this in place already. So note that when your game starts while the user is not wearing their headset, the game stays in visible state until the user puts their headset on. So, and I'm going to put the note here. It is thus important to keep your game paused while in visible mode, because if you don't, the game will keep on running while your user isn't interacting with the game. Also, when the game returns to focused mode, suddenly all controller and hand tracking is re-enabled, and could have game breaking consequences. We do not react to this accordingly. Be sure to test. Actually, this needs to be a warning. Be sure to test this behavior in your game. All right. Okay. In our handling signal, we will update the focus state, emits our focus. What is it called? Focus gained. Signal. Unpause node and emits. There we go. Boink. So that's the next one. Yeah, pretty straightforward. There we go. So the next one is our stopping state. On stopping state. This no. How do we write it again? This signal is emitted by OpenXR when session is ending. I think it's session ending. No, when we enter our stop state. There are some differences between platforms when this happens. On some platforms, it is only emitted when the game is being closed, and OpenXR is being yeah, it's stopping, I guess. Actually, that's it. I'm gonna game of closed. But on other platforms, this will also be emitted every time the player takes off their. It's yeah. For now, this method is only a placeholder. So this is a bit overkill to include this in our write-up, but hey, what do we want? Let's just be complete in what we're doing here. Okie dokie. Nope, not that one. This one. Okay. All right. All right. Cool. On pose recentered. This signal is emitted by OpenXR when the user requests view to be recentered. This communicates to your game that the user is now facing forward, and you should reorient the player so they are facing forward in the virtual world. As there is doing so is dependent on your game. You need your game needs to react accordingly. All right. All we do here is emit the is recentered signal. You can connect this signal often is enough to use Okay, so how do we do a method bind? Have I got an example of that somewhere? I always forget that sort of thing. Oh, we've got double quotes there. I need to actually change that. Where do we have those? Up top. So double these up. There we go. There we go. There we go. What's the other one here? Dun, 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 dun. Okay, that's better. But now, I want to go maybe in here. Try and find the needle in the haystack. Actually, we could probably search for a method and see if we have a class ref method somewhere. Which is actually sort of like this what we need, but well, I'm trying to find something that actually points to, I guess this is all the standard stuff. The roots. This is even more finding a needle in the haystack. Just trying to. How do we do that? Because there is a way to link a word in our documents to here maybe. Is it like this? Normalized class. Okay, that is actually what we want. Obviously not that method, but this will help us find a pattern. So often it is enough to call. Okay, so now we're going to go and search for. Oh, that needs to actually be center. Oops. Oops, we have that. Cool. Cool. All right. Boom. Boom. XR server. All right, I think that is good enough for what we want to do here, and we'll check in a minute whether that redirect actually works. That would be really cool. Alrighty. So let's go and copy over that method as well. And with that, we have described the entire script. That means we don't have dots at the end anymore. This is the end of our script. Boink. Cool. All right, let's run our make again and see what it makes out of it. Now that link will probably not work because obviously I don't think I've got the actual class reference in here. But we shall see. So let's first see if at the top are, yeah, that looks much better. That's actually, oh, there's a couple of commas too many in there now. How did I manage to do that? Okay. Okay. Did I do the same thing here? I did. That was really interesting. Okay. So that looks perfect. That looks perfect. And here we have, yeah, let's see if our notes and work. So here we got on visible state, the signal, and a note while your game is in visible state, because the user has opened the system menu, Godot will keep rendering frames and head tracking will remain active. So your game will remain visible in the background. However, controller and hand tracking will be disabled until the user exits the system menu. And here we get the warning. It is thus important to keep your game paused while in visible mode. If you don't, the game will keep on running. Blah, blah, blah. Also, when the game returns to focus mode, suddenly all controller and hand tracking is re-enabled and could have game-breaking consequences if you do not react to this accordingly. I think that is pretty okay. So here we should also go and do a few more double quotes, I think. Let's see. That's all good. Here's our emits. So we need to have a double quote on that and on that. Okay. Ooh. That's not that, but we have this. Okay. That doesn't do anything. And this again does our pose recenter to signal. Okay. Rerun that and see what it does. Right. Pose recentered. Now does that. Okay. And that finishes script. It's written so that it can be reused over multiple projects. And just add it to the script on your main node, or add it on a channel not specific for its script. And extend needed. Okay, I think that does it. All right. And we have some more documentation and a whole description of our start XR script as implemented on our demos. I think that's perfect. All right, so let's go and submit that. So get checkout minus B. So we're going to make a branch for this, and we call that a better XR start script. Why not? Then we add our two things. Okay, let's go and make sure that that is done automatically. Boom. Dots. And with that, we have our two new things. Add a chapter to the XR manual that improves the startup XR. Push origin. No, it doesn't need to be minus F because this is the first draft. Okay, and then we should have a new PR in here. How cool is that? All right, boom. This PR adds a new chapter to the XR manual detailing the contents of our enhanced startup script that we use in our demos in the Godot demos repository. Okay, let's make that XR demos. Our introduction contains a bare minimum script that forms the basis for all our interfaces. The script adds specific details for OpenXR only, and explains and adds further context to a number of signals emitted by OpenXR interface. It also has further details on the unique nature of refresh on how to properly set. I think that's good enough. Hopefully people will like that. Let's assign myself. Let's make that manual. Let's say enhancement XR. I don't actually care about that. That is worth a discussion. Sweet. Okay. Well, I hope you all found that interesting, and there wasn't a lot of feedback in the chat on what we were doing here. So I hope everybody understood what I was talking about as I'm detailing out what we're doing in the start script. I know that, obviously everybody who's using XR tools, and especially if you're using the staging system in XR tools, you already piggyback on all this logic. It's nicely embedded, so you don't really have to worry about it. But for anybody who's scratch building or who wants to do their own thing, obviously this has been something that has been kind of under the radar. So I think it's a good thing to detail out here. Now, one thing that might still need to have some improvement, but I'll do that after we actually implemented it. If we do the multiple viewport thing, is that there's going to be a change here that we're actually linking up to a specific viewport. So that is something that that will be that I'll add when I do that, and I'll update all the tests. So yeah, pretty cool. I've got about 20 minutes left, so I don't think it's worth starting on the next thing. So there's two things that I really want to do as part of the demos and docs. And that I want to sort of do. Let's talk a little bit about the plans for 2024, because there are some interesting changes going to happen. Some things are still in the pipeline, so we're going to see what that means, especially around things that we're doing as the Godot Foundation itself, especially around XR. There is a lot of interest. Yeah, so actually simply saying the like I said at the beginning of this stream, 2023 was a really weird year. That coming out of 2022, XR sort of was, or VR was sort of on this downwards trend, or was actually already bottoming out. And as I said, like at the end of last year, beginning of this year, we're slowly starting VR to get out of that and go back onto a growth slope. And part of that is the Quest 3 release. Part of that is a number of games that have come out. Part of that is something like stuff like Steam Link. Part of that is obviously the imminent release of the Vision Pro, and part of that also is Unity. And as a result, we've come from a year where everybody has been very careful in their spending to going into a year where it's starting to look like things are going to go back up, and things are starting to happen. And part of that is that a lot of people having looked at Godot, and also in that therefore looking at Godot's XR capabilities, so they're now testing the waters, or some of them have even switched over. So I expect things to happen from that, and we'll have a look at what's going to happen within the closer community in Godot. there, I'm hoping for that to translate into funding. Um, there is an increased interest in Vision Pro specifically. So on the foundation level, things are looking on the up. And I'm hoping that that's going to translate into me being able to focus more on XR related work, which I'm very excited about. Obviously, it's still early in the year. There's a whole bunch of things that are up in the air, and until they happen, we don't know. They can fall through, and then we'll see where we go then. They can happen, and then this is going to be a really really good year. I'm really excited about 2024. I think 2024 is going to be a really interesting year for VR specifically, but I think for XR in general. Um, so that is going to be interesting. And that's going to have my focus, and I'll need to, I'll need to see how that translates to what I'm doing with my channel, what I'm doing with YouTube. I've mentioned a few times before, not as far as tutorial videos is concerned on my channel, I really want to focus on a number of Godot 4 tutorials. However, at this point in time, it's very hard to dedicate time to that. So there are 2 or 3 videos that I have ideas for. With the next one that I'm planning to do, probably focusing on actually these demos that I created for the Godot XR website. Or sorry, not the Godot XR, I said the Godot demo projects repo. And doing because I've done a couple of streams about this, but I don't think I've ever done a video about it, in really explaining the specifically the new so if we go here, non-scale XR, so specifically in explaining the character body centric solution. So so that's probably going to be my next video, but I don't know when I'll have time to actually make it. What I do after that, I've got a couple of ideas, but hopefully I will be able to put some things together in the not too distant future, and have some nice tutorial content that is up to date, because almost everything tutorial wise, except for some getting started videos, are all still Godot 3 videos. And while they are still very relevant, there is a conversion step in people who want to use that same information in Godot 4. So not sure where I'm going to go and how far I'm going to go, but that is something that is on the board. As far as my streams are concerned, I am trying to get back into a doing a stream once every 14 days. I might do every week if I can, but that really depends on on my schedule and what's happening during the week. It will be on Friday. I'm keeping Friday. So today was on Saturday, that just because I had a birthday party to go to last week. But I think on I'm going to try to have at least 2 Fridays a month that I'm doing a stream. What I'm going to be doing on stream is something that I'm still juggling with, because there are a lot of competing things that that are currently options. One is what I've done tonight. So tonight was also a little bit of an experiment for myself. There are a number of small demos that I want to make for the Godot demo project site, because there's a lot of information that, again, like I said, that I've gotten old videos, but that there isn't a modern version of it. And while I can do a tutorial video on it, having an actual demo project in the demo projects folder and then just doing a description of that actually makes a lot of sense, and gives people something to actually download and play with and do something with. So I'm going to go and experiment with what I can do there. I think that might be interesting to do, as it might be interesting to follow along creating one of these demos, and just seeing where we can end up with that. The other thing, of course, is my little drum game. I've put that on hold for the moment. As I said when I began that project, for me, the drum rhythm game was an experiment to see if I could make the basics of it, um, just to see what that would entail in an XR environment. But I'm not a musician. And I really got to a point now where even the last stream, I was kind of struggling into figuring out what to do next, because I'm now getting to that point where um, my lack of musical knowledge prevents me from taking a next step. So that doesn't mean the project is dead. I might put it on GitHub. I haven't decided on that yet either, particularly because it's not very complete, and I'm a little bit conscious about. I don't want this to suddenly put people on the wrong foot just because I'm putting it out there. But there's also a chance that if I eventually um, find people who are willing to help out with certain things, then I might revisit it. On that same line, as I said it earlier tonight, I've been contemplating for a little while to do a GD extension project. Also because I think there isn't enough GD extension content out there. I ever since OpenXR became core, that was OpenXR. For those who remember, in Godot 3 was a GD native plugin. In Godot 4, we started it as a GD extension as well, and I had every intention to keep it that way. But then certain requirements on the Vulkan side meant that we had to bring it into core. And while PR wise and in letting the world know about how serious we are about supporting XR in Godot, that has a lot of advantages. Technically, other than solving the Vulkan issue, the OpenXR didn't need to be in core. It could have been a plugin. It's purely the whole Vulkan situation that made it much more sensible to have it in core. But as a result, I don't have any GD extension project that I can use to showcase and to also help out in the GD extension team in finding issues and helping resolve issues and stuff like that. So for those who are aware, I think I've shown this before, but somewhere in the annals of time on my YouTube channel, somewhere, there is a video that shows off my procedural modeling external that or plugin that I made in the good old Godot 3 days. And this is a nice little video to watch to sort of get your head around what procedural modeling entails. And this was also kind of like the very first experiment that I did in that area. But it basically means that you build up a node graph that then actually creates a 3D model. And then you can use that to create multiple copies that all look slightly different. And I have had plans for a long time to start over on this because I learned a lot in doing this and also learned a lot about how not to do this. And I would like to rebuild this as a GD extension for Godot 4. Also because it's something that I personally believe I could use in a lot of projects that I'm doing, and sort of the more personal things that I'm working on. So that is a really interesting one, and that would mean that if I choose to do that, that for a while my streams will not be about virtual reality. My streams will be purely about building out the external, and I'm a little bit hesitant on that because in the end, my audience obviously is as far as I'm aware, virtual reality oriented. So or maybe we do 1 week working on the external, another week doing virtual reality. I don't know. I'm still juggling with that. The last thing that is on the list of things that I am contemplating, and that could then, if we do 1 week this, 1 week that, is actually I want to return back to my space sim game, and I won't lie, that is in large part because I've started playing Elite Dangerous with my son, and I sort of went like, well, I got pretty far with the basics of the space game that I wanted to build. Um, Maybe I will revisit that sometime. Um, but I'm not sure about that yet because there's still a lot of elements that I'm missing for that one. So those are sort of the things that I'm juggling with, that I'm thinking about. There is a part of me that feels um, that the lack of tutorial content on my channel is something that I wish to resolve, but I just know that that is going to take over so much of my time that I'm not quite sure if I can juggle that. So for now, I think that the tutorial side is going to be at the slow pace that it has been at the moment. But I am hoping to do more with the streams and hopefully catch up on that a little bit. And for that, anybody who is watching and who's stuck with the stream this long, or is watching this sometime later in the week, feel free to give some comments on what you guys are actually hoping for and expecting, and what keeps you engaged with my channel. Because for that reason as well, I am very close to 10,000 subscribers, slowly inching towards that, and obviously, I've put a lot of effort into building the little community that we've created here, and using my channel to move Godot XR forward. Yeah, I'd really like to find a way to make sure that the channel keeps going, and people get useful information from it, and we grow beyond that 10K subscriber mark. That will be really cool. All right. I'm getting a very dry throat, so let's go and fill up this one for one more time. But it is getting late here. It's nearly midnight. I am running out of steam. So I am going to work towards rounding this stuff off. So yeah, I'm gonna leave the next 10 minutes to chat. If people have questions or remarks, please let them know, and we'll discuss those. And if there aren't any more chat messages coming in, then we are slowly going to put an end to the stream, I think. So to you guys, let me know if there's any questions. Also, how was the sound throughout the whole stream for those who stuck around longer? Because as I also said in the beginning of my stream, I have a nice fan blowing in my back because it is what is it right now? It should be under 30 degrees finally, although it still feels much more over here. Oh, that's the wrong one. Yeah, 23 degrees. Still, we're going to go down to 20. And then it's going to go back up. What are we going to have tomorrow? 32 degrees. And I'm talking about Celsius here, not Fahrenheit. It's going to be another scorcher tomorrow. And it looks like we will have a little bit of respite on Monday. But after Wednesday, back up to the 30s. Oh boy. It's going to be cooking. Lemon Jump, there's no problems in going off topic. I do not mind at all. Is there a way to bring the data that the rendering server uses to the rendering device? I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, because the rendering device runs within the rendering server, and is basically the thing that holds everything on the GPU. So do you mean extracting information from the GPU back to, the script side, um, or what sort of data are we talking about? All good here, Bastian. Multitasking. This one we'll review later in the week, as always. Well, 6 degrees of crispy bacon. I have great respect for people who are willing to sit through a stream in retrospect. I have to admit there are one or two streamers that I really enjoy having on in the background, even if I'm watching a previous recorded video, just because they talk about interesting stuff or do interesting things. But for anything that I really need to concentrate for, yeah, I'd rather watch live. Let's say it that way. So kudos to you to revisiting my stream. Although I guess that the coding part of this or documentation part of this is only 1 hour of the stream, if I remember correctly. The rest is me just ranting away at everything that's happened in 2023 and my feelings about XR and stuff like that. So. Okay, so if I have a sphere in scene and I want to render it myself using a render device with my own pipeline instead of letting render server do it. Yeah, yes. Not yet. That is something that I am hoping will become a thing in the next couple of months. I'm not sure if it's going to be a 4.3 thing, but I am hoping that we're going to get that fairly soon. So internally in Godot, and potentially could you do it in the module thing? I don't know. But internally in Godot, all the data is available. It's just not exposed yet. And a big part of that is because the rendering logic can run on a separate thread, and there's a bunch of things there. Now with the rendering what the bloody hell, sorry, I'm trying to think of the name. The rendering effects PR, that is probably the best part where we would first expose that information, so that you could add in an extra pass or in one of your rendering effects passes. You can grab the internal IDs for the vertex buffer of an object or the index buffer of an object, and then end up rendering that object in your pass. Whether access will be given outside of the rendering thread, that is going to be a big question, because there is a lot of potential for things really breaking. And currently, there is a limited amount of use for doing so. But yeah, we are working on exposing that part of the render engine at some point in time. The architecture for it is there. It's just a matter of exposing things and making sure that we do so in a safe way, so that people don't get themselves into a really bad jam. So yeah, it's coming at some point. And I'm glad that the audio was good, because I'm a little bit concerned, because I think I added a noise gate on the on my little Elgato control thingy, and I can't really monitor what that is doing. So glad that that's worked. Playing back at 1.5 speed, yeah, that does help. But still, you're still sitting there for a few hours going through a whole thing, I guess. But yeah, it's one of the reasons why I keep all my live streams online, because there's always people who want to revisit, and even I, often when someone asks me about something and I remember that I talked about it during a stream, I'll say, go and watch that stream. About 2 hours in, There's a half an hour that I talk about the subject. Go and watch that. And then it's still good content, still useful content. So, and hopefully, so far, I haven't made a fool out of myself online and said things that I'll end up regretting. But we'll certainly find out someday if I did. um, Oh yeah, still wanted to see if this actually links through. Look at that! It goes straight to center on HMD on the XR server. How nice is that? I do have to say, the document system that we are using, Syncs, is incredibly powerful. I really like it. Now, of course, with something like this, there is now a PR with that thing in there. It's not just for the people who are in the dock maintenance thing. I invite anybody who is willing to go through this, to go through it and leave remarks and say, "Hey, Bas, maybe you should explain it this way, or add some clarification here, or hey, you've made some stupid spelling mistakes." Although I think that 1,000 ships is going to jump on that one. She's amazing, so better check in tomorrow and see if I already have a whole bunch of spelling fixes. It'd be really cool. Yeah, so the multiple path, there's a whole bunch of things coming there, and if you want to know about that sort of stuff, I can highly recommend checking out the rendering channel on Rocket Chat. We do a weekly meeting there. Clay organizes that one. One meeting is in a European friendly time, and then the next week it's a meeting that's in a Australian friendly time. Clay himself is in Canada, so the meetings are always in a Canada friendly time. But we discuss everything that's going on the rendering side there. And in there, we also very often discuss the things that we're currently working on. So while there is obviously never a promise that when we're working on something that will be finished and merged, we can find out that something doesn't work, or that something doesn't work the way that we are expecting, and things can fall through. But it does give you an idea of what's going on, and it also gives you the ability to have some, what you call it, um, some discussion about what sort of things that you need. Yeah, that's possible that the signups are currently disabled because we had a DDoS attack a little while ago, so I'm not quite sure what's happening there. I'd need to ask around about that one. I'm not sure. But yeah, the whole Rocket Chat thing is, again, the thing, as I said before, the Rocket Chat server is very much ended towards people who actually want to be a part of the people who are working on Godot. It's not a place to really get support. It's usually frowned upon. We try to keep it all on topic on actual changes that are being done, but it is still on. Everybody's welcome to listen in or join in, whether you just read the discussions that are going on or join in on the meetings to have a listen about what's being discussed. It's all transparent and open in what we do. but yeah, there are a bunch of things that that have been discussed in the core rendering team about um, more customization in the engine, and um, hopefully the rendering effects PR will be merged soon. Hopefully nothing will come out of that that will delay that further, but I think that's in good shape now. But that already is the basis of further customizations that we want to do on that front. And one of the things that is being talked about right now is actually multiple passes in a viewport, so that you can do things like mirrors and portals and all that sort of jazz. Um, Now I don't know the details of that, but that is definitely something that is being discussed. Get on the script for someone to sign me on so I can see what's up. Also planning to do stuff. Ah, yeah. I mean, I honestly don't know who's in charge of that or who you should reach out for that. Um, it could indeed work. Just asking for, I don't know if there's a rendering channel on there or maybe one of the general purpose ones. But I'm pretty sure that it's a temporary situation where we're disabling that. Like I said, we had this DDoS attack the other day. It's probably because of that. So yeah, plenty of things happening, good and bad. And the bad thing is you can't sign up to the Rocket Chat server. I really wonder what that's about. Um, you can also just check in back tomorrow and see if it works then. Who knows? It might just be that someone's doing maintenance on it right now. I wouldn't be surprised about that. Again, I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't really get involved with the website side of Godot. So, um, what else do we have that might be interesting to have a look at? Yeah, the action map. That's definitely a topic that I really want to do a video about at some point. Not just for Godot, but in the a more general action map a video, just to explain why certain things work the way that they do, because there's a lot of misunderstanding around the action map, and especially, and this is one of the things that I am still going back and forward with, in is we have our default action map in Godot, and that's really not the way that you're supposed to be using it, but it gives people a starting point, maybe the wrong starting point. I also need to fix up the interface at some point. This was my very first attempt at making a proper UI in the core editor. The only experience I had before this was the UI um, for the procedural mesh tool. But yeah, there's room for improvement here, and there's a lot of ideas that I had that I put in the structure that I never followed through on that I still need to do at some point. Because this is actually a base class. Yeah, the idea was instead of them all being the same window with just this boring view, is that if you go like to the touch controller, it would actually have a specific UI for the touch controller that shows the controllers and shows what all these things mean that is like menu click pointing to the button, select pointing to the button, the poses showing a location and where the location is on the controller. But I never got to that. um yeah, that is definitely worth doing a video about at some point. Yeah, we have some ideas to improve pass through. That's still something that's still the old interface. Really update that. So maybe I should add this into the Start VR thing. Actually, pass through is probably also a good one to make a demo app for. do something with passwords. So that's another one to put on the list of ideas to do a stream about. So yeah, plenty of stuff that we could do. All right, guys, it's almost midnight, so I am going to make a move and start figuring out where my bed's hiding. This has been fun. This was a good stream. I think we had a really nice chat at the beginning. I hope that this doesn't just give people a nice overview about the startup script and all the things that hasn't been documented before, but also motivates people to have a look at how the documentation actually works on the back end side, and motivate some people to contribute, because it is a community effort, the whole documentation. So yeah, anybody who wants to contribute is more than welcome. And now you have a video to refer to that shows you the process of building the website, and or building a documentation site, and doing making a new chapter, and the formatting for the chapter, and then eventually creating a PR. And now it's it's waiting on people to review this and release some remarks, and then hopefully at some point someone will click that merge pull request button, and we have a new page. So yeah, cool stuff. Happy about what we did tonight. It's been interesting. I hope people find it useful. So that's where we're going to end it on. Again, a happy new year to everybody. I know it's already the second week into the year. I'm feeling good about 2024. I hope it's going to be a great year for everybody. I'm hoping that I'm going to get over that illustrative 10K subscriber mark. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. Like the video if you want to like it. Thumbs down if you hate it what I'm doing here. All good. And Puppy, welcome on the last minute. I'm just about to round off. Yeah. Oh, on that subject, I have my own Discord as well, and I hope that the link this time works. I'll double check if it's the right link, but there should be a link in the description to my Discord, I hope. And if not, it will be added soon, because I will be checking the description for the video. And I announce my my streams there usually a little bit in advance. On YouTube generally as well, I will try, and I usually try to create the next stream a day or two in advance, so that it has a nice little timer. For those people who want to follow me, why doesn't it straight go to Twitch or Twitter? I mean, Twitter, Max. Where am I? You're not going to tell me that is. There we go. So Twitter, Max213. You can find me there as well. Again, I try and post my streams on there as well. So subscribe to my Twitter if you're on Twitter, and you won't miss a stream. And it'll probably take an hour before YouTube will process the stream and make it available as a watchable video. But you can always revisit my videos, my streams on YouTube. Keep them all up. You can always watch them again. Yeah, that's it. Good night, everybody. I hope it was enjoyable. And I'll leave you guys there. Have a good one.